Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Nostalgia Cast podcast. I am your host, Cass, and today I am joined by the one and only Zach.
Hello, audience. How do we do?
Well done,
We
well
might.
done.
Okay, we start that.
That's fine.
Reload
That
it.
is fine. No, we're going with this. I don't care. I don't care where we are going with that. Anyways, how are you,
Yeah,
mate?
doing really well. I was thinking 5 different ways I could enter that way, but like, you know what? I'm going to stumble my way
Hello,
into this.
audience.
Burst out in the opening. Draw some fire, you know.
All right.
How
Well,
are you?
I'm good. I've cleaned my
Yeah.
I was gonna say PS5. I've cleaned my PS4 for the first time, which is good. I did order last night. I was just looking up stuff. I ordered like the full like cleaning kit, so the air in a can and all that kind of stuff. So I just cleaned it
yeah,
as much as
yeah.
I could because it was getting a bit loud. But then I opened my brother's, and his one sounds like a jet across the full house.
Oh
we
my
both
days.
we only have the
So
the
bad.
slims. We don't even have the pros. We have the slims. And I opened it and I was like, oh my fucking god. It was just, there was so much dust. It was mad. But
Is
yeah,
it worse for the Pro? Is it worse for the Slim?
I think
Because I've never had the Slim before.
apparently the pros are worse.
Okay.
So that's why I was really
I
confused with
know
why
I can
his
recognise
slim
it on
was.
like James's stream.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
most of the time, you can hear it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they
But
sound
I've
the
never really
same.
had an issue with it. I
No,
don't really know if it's because mine is relatively new, but
yeah.
so I've
Well,
only had it for 3 years.
yeah, no, I got my one December 2018 because I need my first one, my day one PS4 broke. So, but yeah, but I don't know, his one is a bit off, but it's fine. Anyway, we cleaned it, so it should be fine. Well, anyways, if you didn't know, Nostalgia Cast is a podcast where I interview people from the community and my friends about their memories when it comes to games, films, shows from their childhoods, or whatever else they find nostalgic. So today, of course, we are joined by Zach to start us off because I thought this would be the
Hello.
best way to start off this whole podcast series if it becomes a series. As we earlier said right before this, just me and Zach, basically the same people. Like, we are literally the
We
same
are. We
person
are literally twins at this point.
in just
It's
one
mad.
podcast. There's no better way to
Mm.
do this. I was sipping kind of cold there. Anyways,
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah. Go on.
so I suppose we'll go straight into it, or unless there is anything you want to talk about. I suppose we can talk about Ghost of Tsushima if you want before we
I
go.
mean, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about with that, but I think we should leave that towards the end.
Yeah,
Leave that
actually,
sort of
that is a good idea. All right. Well, so as I said, there's a few questions I have myself, and then there's obviously a few questions from the community on
Of
Twitter.
course, yeah.
So I suppose the first one I have is to describe yourself to the listeners. What is the fandom, if there is only one, that you feel best describes your taste in nerd stuff? So like, maybe not even the people in the fandom itself, but like the actual franchise. So like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars. Like, what's the one franchise thing that you would like? Yeah, this
Oh,
use to
Lord of the
describe
Rings,
yourself.
hands on, every day, any time. Lord of the Rings is my go-to if we're talking about films. I think it's very difficult to. Maybe I don't want to sound pretentious with this, but it's really hard to sort of like place something that is so iconic onto yourself as a personific or a persona or
Yeah,
sort of an iconography self of image. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but really I honestly I would probably say like Aragorn.
yeah.
Those are sort of my characters. If we
If we're
talk
picking
about that.
characters from the franchise, yeah. See, yeah, for me that's the thing. I'm really like torn between Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter because, like, obviously, I love Lord of the Rings so much. Like everything I've ever loved, where it comes to like nerd stuff, is mainly comes from like Lord of the Rings. Whenever I'm playing any Elder Scrolls game or playing Dragon Age or whatever, I always play as an elf pretending I'm like Legolas or something,
Mm.
But I don't know. I think if I were to choose one thing that would like completely describe me, I think it would have to be Harry Potter. I don't know. Like it's the first book I remember ever reading. Well, actually, it wasn't the first Harry Potter book. It was actually Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And my uncle bought it for me when I was like 3 or something. So I taught myself how to read Polish by reading that book, and I still have it actually. It's literally just laying next to me.
Did
And
you have individual covers for you? I know that they're very specific to different regions.
we
Is
actually
yours
have
different?
we have the American covers for some reason. And
they're not terrible, but
no, they're not bad. But that's the thing. I have Chamber of Secrets and I have Deadly Hallows in Polish with the American covers, and they're so hard to find online because I want a full collection in Polish with those covers. Because
do they even sell the original covers in Polish?
I don't know. I think those are the original ones for us. I don't know if we have the UK ones. I doubt it though. I don't know. I mean, the newer ones do. Like if you I have all the books in English as well, and they're like the newest kind of like animated kind of Harry Potter thing. I don't know. It's like a child's one, and I know they exist in Poland as well now. No, but yeah, the Chamber of Secrets book I have is a day one edition. Same with Deadly Hallows. And well, day one in Poland. I think they were like a year after they actually released in the UK and stuff. And yeah, by reading that, like I fell in love with, like magic and wizards and all that kind of stuff. And all that brought me into then, when I was playing video games, I wanted to play video games with magic, and that just kept leading to more and more stuff like Gothic.
It sort of opened that door for you, opened that world of fantasy. Yeah.
So that's why I think if I were to choose like one franchise, that would like. If I were to, choose a franchise, I'd be like, yeah, that is me. I think it would be Harry Potter. I think like I know the most about Harry Potter out of everything I know and stuff. So,
well, that is very true. For those who are newly listening, as this is the first podcast,
it is.
We did a marathon of the Harry Potter series not too long ago, and I remember Cass pointing out throughout, and Cass and I were both doing it, but I was trying to be as I was a bit more quiet with my facts and figures, but Cass was very adamant, shall we say. He's very forward about his knowledge.
I mean, not during Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
That was just completely.
Cass, shut up! We're watching. But this scene with the secret castle and the secret passage.
I did actually say that, yeah, but in Prisoner of Azkaban, we just kind of made nonce jokes the whole time.
Nonce jokes the entire time.
We ruined Professor Lupin, who is actually my favorite character out of this. We ruined him.
It was terrible.
It was great, but it was terrible.
Stop it.
Actually, this kind of goes perfectly to the next question I have, which is the first memory you have of anything from the nerd culture. So the first film you remember seeing, or the game you remember playing, or a book reading, that kind of thing. So what would that be for you?
Oh, okay. Nerd culture. I would probably say anywhere between. I would say within Marvel and DC, as my dad was a massive nerd himself. He's just a man-child at this point, and I remember he just collected Green Lantern books and Batman comics growing up, and he just fell in love with those. And then I remember Mum would go off shopping somewhere, or she'd go like the supermarket, and my dad and I would just take drives to buy it, and he would just go off to like the nearest shop. This is when like they used to have the little shops around the corner where like you would have football cards, and people were selling cards out like limited editions and such, and he'd bring me to those, and I would collect Pokemon cards and stuff and get into that. And so I would have to say three things sort of brought me into that entryway, I suppose, into that world of pop culture at this point. It would have to be Spider-Man, X-Men, and Pokemon. Although I could probably I could say Beyblade at some point. But,
Beyblade! I completely forget about Beyblade like existing from time to time. Wait, when you said Spider-Man and X-Men, like, do you mean just like the 90s cartoons?
No, not just like the comic, like not just the series, as in like the TV series.
Oh man, that to this day, I still think honestly the X-Men 90s cartoon has the best intro to any show.
Oh, they do.
Like that, instead of anime, because anime openings are on a different level. But when it comes to like animated like cartoons or even TV shows, I think that piece of music is just the best one. Like, oh my, I still listen to it from time to time.
Have you seen that they actually made an anime X-Men version?
Really?
Yeah, it's really good. They did like dub and sub. The dub isn't so great, and dub never really is, but the sub is something like.
Oh shit! I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, you look at it right now, and it's so like I'm sure you can pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, it's gonna come up on the podcast. Yeah. I actually kind of want to watch this. This looks. I love the art style.
Yeah, more violent, but it's all the things I love from it. And it's so Japanese. There's certain things that Wolverine will say, like, that's not really a Wolverine thing. Like, you can tell the subtle differences from an American or Western approach versus an Eastern one. Just how someone will act, and you start to see some of like Logan's, samurai aspects, because his
Yeah.
whole entire character is founded on honor and is founded on this act of being a soldier. So he's very misunderstood as this sort of animalistic creature when he's like, no, I'm this guy who's rooted in morals and standards and truths and perspectives.
Yeah.
And to see all that be kind of echoed within the anime was really interesting to see.
See, now I actually really want to watch this.
We'll do it.
I didn't even know it exists. I was like, Jesus. Okay, well that gives me, like, when I was looking at it, like, it reminds me of was it Batman Ninja or something? You know, that movie, the Batman movie came out.
Oh yeah. Batman Samurai. Was it?
It's something like that. I think it was, yeah. He was a samurai, but I think it was called Batman Ninja. Yeah, it's called Batman Ninja. And I actually love that. Like,
I've not seen it.
it's so the art style is obviously like anime art style, but it's also like has like these kind of 3D moments. It's kind of weird, but I loved it. Like, it was so cool. At the end, there's like, I don't want to spoil, but there's like mechs and stuff. It goes like full out. It's really cool. I really recommend it. And
I'm looking at it right now. This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
So it's like a mix between 2D and 3D.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, for me it would be, Harry Potter was kind of the thing that made me enter this whole thing. But also, I suppose, when I was a child, so not the first games I played, because the first games I played were like Tekken and some like hockey games on the PlayStation 1. I don't even know what they were. But in about like 2004 or something, I have cousins in Poland, and I would always go up to them every single summer, and they had a game called Diablo 2. Or was it Diablo?
Oh, yeah.
One second. When did Diablo 2 release? It could have been Diablo 2.
Was it 2003?
2000. Okay, so it was Diablo 2. And
Okay.
I'll never forget. That was like my first time. Like, I didn't really know anything. Like, I never played RPG games or any of those kind of things. I literally just played Tekken, hockey games, and some kids games that my uncle had. And fly fuck off. Anyways, so it's just buzzing right next to me. There's no way. Okay, it's fine.
Right, no, you're not paying rent. Get out of the room. Just
honestly. So I remember being over their house, and then we were playing. I don't know what we were playing, some games on the computer, and then they turned on Diablo 2, and I was obviously, it was 2003 or 4, so I was like 4 or 5 kind of age, and I was so scared because I was like, oh my, there's like monsters and stuff. But I loved it. I was just like, oh yeah, I want to keep playing, even though I barely could do anything, obviously. I think I was just pressing a few keys on the keyboard while they were doing everything else, because they're older than me, like a few years.
Oh yeah, I bet you were mashing it like, oh, fuck,
yeah.
fuck, yeah.
And I remember after playing that, I was like, I want to play more of that. And then I started walking. So in Poland, there's these like you said, these kind of tiny shops on the corners. And there was one that sold gaming magazines, and I was like, well, I don't really know what gaming is. I was just like, I know, like, I'll play games, but I didn't know there's like a huge thing around it, obviously, because this was like before the internet and before gaming shows and things.
Okay, for people who are like prior to like 2000, the big boomers here discussing this is that a lot of these times, which it was 96 for me. It was for you. It was,
I was born
99.
Yeah.
And even though it's like a simple year or two gap, there is a massive generational difference.
Yeah.
Because I remember how people used to look down on gaming at some point. At one point, it was kind of this idea of like, okay, there's no kind of career you could have with this. This was purely entertainment. It's like you bought a film, you watched it, and then that was it. And your family kind of looked at you like, oh, you're spending all this time, playing this game.
Even I remember that.
Actual work.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't chastising. It was kind of, you were looked down on in some way, even though it wasn't outright stated. There wasn't like an outlet for people to kind of discuss this sort of thing, or it wasn't something I remember you could chat to your mates about it. Oh, guys, this new game? Are you having a good time? Because I remember like playing Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance. But I remember it wasn't as big as it is now. You don't have esports. You don't have the facilities or the access to. I could start a YouTube channel right now, gain subscribers, and through repetition and work, I could probably set up a gaming channel and then gain a career out of it. Whereas 10, 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't an avenue for us.
Yeah, no, completely. Like, honestly, like, that's why I was so shocked. I was like, there was all these, like, your gossip magazines and, just children's magazines with Bob the Builder and all that kind of stuff. And just, like, you get, like, a free tiny toy. And there was, like, always just this, like, one magazine that just had, like, some really cool-looking guy on it. But, like, the graphics weren't that good.
Thing. Yeah.
But, like, obviously, we'll think it's, like, oh, it looks amazing. But, like, it's like PS1 graphics kind of thing on the cover, so it looked
but you loved it. You looked at it like Halo 2 or something. Like, guys, this is going to be the next gen thing. And then comparing it to now, it looks janky.
Yeah, and I would buy them.
Not Halo 2 for those listening. But...
and I would buy them, and I'm like, I know nothing about these games. I'm never going to play them, but they look cool. I just want to look at the photos of these games, And I think one of my mates had a computer as well. And then from time to time, you got demo discs. Back in the days of demo discs, man, I miss those days. Some people probably never even experienced them who'd be listening. And I think one of the discs had like Gothic, just a demo. But then, so I bought that and I brought it to my friend and we started playing Gothic. And I was like, this is even better. Because Diablo is obviously, if you've ever seen Diablo gameplay, you kind of look up from the top and like, you just kind of click around. But Gothic is like a proper like RPG. I think it was the first proper like RPG game I've ever played. Because I brought the demo disc to him, and then we loved it. And he's like, "Well, I'm buying the game." He was like asking his uncles, everything, whatever way he could have gone into the game. Because I don't think we had like a gaming shop or something in our town in Poland. I mean, maybe there was, but obviously I was too young to remember.
Yeah.
And he got it, and literally every single day, the whole summer, we would spend so many hours just running around and just slashing different like wolves and monsters and stuff. And like, yeah,
and that's what clicked.
And it clicked, honestly. Like, it all from Diablo 2, just enjoying that, and then seeing stuff on magazines, and then getting that demo of Gothic, and then just playing it, and my friend buying it. And from that point, I was like, I just want to play these stuff all the time. I was like, because as a child, you'd always play with like, you have knights and you have a dragon and you have like a toy castle, and you pretend you're a knight and you're like fighting these dragons and stuff. But then in this, you didn't really have to pretend; you actually could do it, and that was what like made it for me. Because as a child, like that led to that, and Harry Potter, all the stuff led into me loving like all these books about. Like I said, like knights,
fantasy, other worlds, and exploration and adventure.
Exactly.
It was a nice form of escapism, was it not?
Oh, for sure. Like honestly, I still have like all these books that I had as a child, like Ranger's Apprentice and all these random books I've like people just wouldn't really know about.
Well, what sort of books did you read growing up, fantasy-wise?
So there's there's a series called Spooks by Joseph Delaney. It's actually set in like, well, it's called The County, but it's basically like the whole like Manchester, Burnley kind of area that Pendle Hill, isn't it, and all that stuff. That was my favorite. Like, well, maybe not my favorite. I suppose Harry Potter was my favorite series, but like apart from that, it would have been Spooks. I think there's like 16 books in the series, and I have every single one except of the last one. I haven't bought that yet. I'm gonna move my mic while I look at my books. So there's a movie actually, but I haven't seen it. It looks awful. It's about a guy. He's a seventh son of a seventh son, so he's able to see ghosts and like.
Oh yeah. Witches. I've heard of this. Yeah.
And he becomes an apprentice of an old spook in his area, and he fights like witches and stuff who are trying to like. I think there's like a clan of witches who are stealing kids kidnapping kids from parents to kill them and use their blood and bones for magic. And I was reading this at age 8, and
I bet your family like, what is wrong with you?
my
You need
mom
help?
was like, "What? I don't know why you're reading, but just
Hmm.
read it," because I was just reading every single night. But I remember there's a section in the beginning of the book where before he actually becomes an apprentice, he has to stay a night in like a haunted house near a mill. And he's like, all right, so you have to stay in the basement, and no matter who comes over to the door, no matter who knocks, whatever, do not open the door. So he's sitting there with a candle, and he hears like scraping noises all around. And this is a book for kids. I was like 7 or 8 reading this, scared shitless in my room. And then there's like parts where like his mom comes to the door and she's like opening up. She's like, Tom, it's me, your mom, like open up. He's like, no, I can't do this. Like he knew there's something up. It's like all these people he knows, all these like, there's like a poor woman coming over or something. And it was basically just a boggart just pretending to be all these people. So it's just, it wasn't even scary, but as a child that was scary.
But it was the build-up, like your sense of imagination is completely different.
Exactly. Because I can, even to this day, I can imagine it exactly the same way as I did back then.
Those sort of images stick with you. Like I can go back to, since we're discussing books, I remember just briefly on the side excerpts I think I wasn't with my family, it was someone like extended family who were a bit hesitant with me getting into Harry Potter because my family is quite religious, or at least has a religious side.
Yeah.
And so they thought of Harry Potter as like, dark magic and all this, like, but then gradually, as we're into the 21st century, no, it's good fun. Okay, have at it. And then once I got through those, I remember just Aragorn.
Oh, I was literally just about to say it. It was literally on the top of my tongue. I was literally just going to open my mouth saying Aragorn as you said it. See, this is what I meant to the listeners.
We do have really similar moments. But I remember reading those, and that's not just Harry Potter, not just Lord of the Rings, and having that realm of Tolkien open things up with, Elvis lore and building on Celtic and Welsh and Indo-European languages. But I think what really brought me to attention with Aragorn, because like going back to what we were saying about the images, is I could still picture Aragorn carrying his sword, and then he just Severe or something, the line his sword Brisinga, and his sword it just lights up like in the bluest flame. And then there's certain images you get when you read a book versus watching a film, or you see it later in life, or you go back to it later in life, that just sort of stick with you.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of identify it through that time. And the imagination from a child compared to an adult is vastly different. If you said, I've never read Harry Potter in my life, and I read it when I was, as I am now, 23, I would have a different image of it. And I think I would have, there would be less of a charm. I mean, you still would be enticed, you would still enjoy the story regardless, because it is an excellent story. But I think there are certain things, how Rowling had written it. This goes to any writer for early books like Lord of the Rings or vice versa. When you go into a book, there is a certain amount of charm that entices a child. That when you really worded that weirdly, but when you
no, but it's true. It's true.
But you have this kind of, it's written for children in some facet. Of course, it's a family book. It's a kind of, anyone can read this. But some of the imagination is left for the child to discover, and that's what envelops them to gradually move into something and explore that realm of ideas and thoughts and concepts, which is very interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Literally, like, you said it perfectly there. Because when I think of like the books, I'll look at them, and just the second I look at them, I will literally see it the way, like I said, everything, the way I pictured everything as a child. Like, that's what the world looks for me now. But I feel like if I would have read it now, because of all these other books I've read, all these other games I've seen, I've played, all these movies I've seen, like, the imagination wouldn't really be there. I would be imagining things I've already seen, kind of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And creating something out of that. But as a child, when you're experiencing these things for the first time, it is literally just your mind making it, not anything you've ever seen or anything. Like, I read, like I said, Harry Potter before I've seen a Harry Potter. And I don't think, not all the books, but some of the books, like the first 3 or 4 books for sure. So when I think of Harry Potter, I think of what I saw as a child, even though it was quite similar to what the movies ended up being like later. But that is what it's like, and it is, as you said, they write it for kids. Like, they're children's books, but anyone can read them. But they are pointed towards the children, and
well, I think a lot of it has to be. Go on. Sorry.
No, I was finished.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with experience.
Yeah.
With the experience you have as an adult. If you read those same books, or any book from, that's sort of placated or, directed towards a family or a children's perspective, a lot of those will be from an adult's perspective when you are viewing it, because you're at a different age. I know that's kind of...
No, I get you.
But you understand what I mean. When you read these books, if I had read this when I was 12 versus when I'm 23, there's two... I mean, I would still have similar aspects of it, but two completely different perspectives. Because a lot of the factors inside the book I could relate to now that I'm an adult. I can go and say, there's certain things I understand now. There's certain things I can read between the lines of what's written. That's a piece of humor. He's conveying this sort of emotion. Yeah. As a child, I'm like, okay, I get it. Okay, funny moment. But it wasn't as deep as I would have perceived it as an adult. There's certain things that you could say a winding staircase. Now for a child that could mean like a spiral staircase, but for us as adults, the technology we've seen nowadays could be actually that could be like a lift or a motor, some sort of mechanism. There's certain things that we've understood at different age that we apply that perspective in a different manner. Okay. As we're discussing books and games, I would probably ask you, how did you get into games, as we're leading into our first topic?
Yeah, so
really easy.
Exactly, yeah. No, there was the next two questions I had as well were basically stuff we went into. So how did I get into games? If I'm being honest, I don't really remember. I just know my uncle had a PlayStation 1 when I was a child, and he had a friend his age, and his friend would always come over and they would just play Tekken and, like I said, the hockey games. And I'd be like, can I play? And I'm pretty sure he often did that thing where he just gives you the controller, but it's not connected, The classic thing that everyone does.
Yeah.
And I'd be just there mashing... Have you, mashing buttons?
I was too smart for that. I was
but he would play against a CPU.
What are you doing?
And he would...
Let me play.
Exactly. He'd play against a CPU. He would tell me, I'm the character that he's playing as, and he's the CPU. So I was there like 3, and my uncle was, I don't know, like 10 or 13 or something like that. There's a few years difference between us. And I was like, I'm so much better than you. I'm beating your ass. And I'm there, like, I'm playing as King. He's playing as
you big idiot,
Jin.
Can't even try it.
I'm like, oh man, nobody can beat me. So it was that. And then, like, I said all the stuff with the RPG stuff with my cousins. But then, that was never, like, playing, like, non-stop. I feel like when we moved to Ireland in 2005, my uncle bought a PS2 because he came with us, actually. He just came for a few months. So he bought a PS2 here, but then he was going back to Poland and he left his PlayStation 2. And I didn't know there's something like a memory card. So I didn't have one for ages. But I remember having, I think it was like, some of the Lord of the Rings games. I think I had Return of the King, but the game I mainly remember playing was I had Prisoner of Azkaban. And the thing is, because I didn't have a memory card, I could never finish the game. You had
to replay it all the time.
Every single day, I would play the game from the beginning. Because I only had like a few games, I was a child. I didn't know there's a GameStop in town, My parents weren't paying attention to this type of stuff. So I didn't really know until like later.
Did they limit you the amount of time, like hours you would play in a day?
Not really as a child, because I wouldn't.
No?
I wouldn't really play that many. Like, I would play every day, but I wouldn't be sitting there for like 10 hours. I'd play like an hour or two, and I'd be like, I'm gonna go outside to my friends and play. Like, it wasn't something that like I would sit down and just like now with the Ghost of Tsushima.
Come out like 10 hours into
where I've been playing
I finished it.
Yeah, where I've been playing.
But now we're doing it now. Last of Us 2.
Honestly, everyone's doing it, but I mean, there's nothing else to do. To be fair, so I feel like when I came into Ireland, it like reignited with the PS2 because yeah, so I would replay Prisoner of Azkaban every single day, and then one day I remember I actually managed to sit down and finish the full game in one sitting. And I remember because the day before that, I got like close towards the end because there's a part in the game where you get to fly as Buckbeak.
Oh, don't tell me it's like someone walked in and like shut it off or turned it off. You're like, I'm right near the end.
If I'm being honest, I don't remember what happened, but I just know I got to like the Buckbeak area.
Okay.
And then, yeah, something happened, and then I had to play it again all over the next day. But I finally got to finish it.
And I don't think I would actually come back to the game if that happened. If someone actually walks in and I had to repeat the game over and over for an hour at least every day, and then someone turn off the PlayStation, like, no, that's it for you today. I was at the end. The fuck?
Honestly, no, I've replayed that game so many times. I'm pretty sure you could give me a controller and the game. I would close my eyes. I could do the full opening section on the train without looking. Like you start on train, there's the Dementors and everything. Like it's, I've played it way too many times. I've never played a game as many times as I have that. Maybe I've played games for longer amounts, but just not as many times, you know. But anyways, then we there's this shop called Argos. You know, I think it's in the UK as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I've never heard of it before.
Well, so they had these like huge catalogs, and I remember I've always looked at the toys in them, and then I never realized if you scroll a bit past the toys, you come to the video games, and I was like, oh my god, all these games. And I was just looking at the covers. I was like, oh, this looks cool. I don't know what it is, you know, because obviously I didn't have, like, at this point I wasn't buying the magazines anymore because I would buy them in Poland. Yeah. And I didn't know anywhere to buy them here. And I would just pick up all these random games, like more and more, and like they were always usually like cheap, like €15, €20, you know. So my parents would just buy me them because like, why not?
Oh, you were so lucky. I think I had the opposite reaction. My family were sort of resistant to it. So I remember like the same sort of thing, like Argos and, you know, some other things.
Yeah.
I remember opening up and I was looking through and I was just showing my mum, oh, that's cool. Okay. And then she just sort of, okay, like, shut the fuck up and walk away. You're not getting it. And then I was like, I remember having this kind of, I thought I was using my Jedi mind trick at the time, but I was kind of speaking like Yoda. I was kind of through things at my family I was like, oh, this is you know, reverse psychology. You know, I've learnt this from cartoons, so it must work. So I was naive at the time. And I just went to my parents, and I remember talking to them, saying, oh, imagine if I actually had this. Imagine if I could play this. And I was kind of guilt tripping.
I've done that too.
I would be so much happier if I had this, you know. And I would just sort of explain elaborately, like, oh, I would be such a happier child. You would do so well. I could tell about the other families. You're the best parents in the world. You know, just buy me this game, just this one time, you know. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it's like, yeah, we see you. Yeah. What are you doing? Stop it.
No, so I would. Yeah. No, okay. So I would usually just do that with the cheap games, but then because they would never buy me like a new game for €55, you know, maybe for like my birthday or something later on.
Oh, yeah.
Like for a child,
Christmas time is always best time.
Yeah, but then I think I was just walking with my mom through town, and I found a shop called GameStop, which still exists here in this town, exact same spot. And I walked in, and I was like, it was like heaven. Just games everywhere. I was like, oh my god. And they're
affordable.
Exactly.
Relatively.
They're usually pre-owned. That's what I would get. At the end of when I bought my PS3 in 2008, I had a full like drawer in a cupboard thing. There was 130 something PS2 games, ranging from completely new games to like games I would buy for 50 cents, because they were literally from time to time they would be there these games that were just like 50 cent, €2, you know. And I was just like, oh my god. And they were like any game you can think of: Sims 2, A Dog's Life, Ty the Tasmanian
Oh,
Tiger, Shrek 2, Shrek Smash and Crash Racing, which I
classics.
fucking love. Shrek Smash and Crash Racing. I have so many memories with my aunt because my aunt then moved here in 2008, and we would just play that over and over. Um, God knows, Spider-Man 2, man. Oh, I remember coming back from
Oh,
school
brings back memories.
every Friday. I would come back from school, uh, bring my PS2 downstairs. My mom would be making dinner, and I would plug my PS2 downstairs to her old box TV, that everyone had back in the day, a 480p or something.
Hmm.
Plug it in and just lie down on the floor and just crawl through the vents in a room and just jump in and beat people up. And my mom would be like, just sighing. She just look at me. I would be like 7
Yeah,
doing this. It's like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. The sign of disappointment is wasting your life with this game. What
Yeah,
are you
because I
doing?
feel like at that point I was like getting more into it. Like I would still obviously
Mm.
go outside and play football and run around, but at that point often you'd go over to someone's house and they would also have a PS2, or even just like a few years later, 2 3 years later, a PS3. And instead of going to someone's house and like, oh yeah, let's go play football, you just sit down and just play games all day. And like I would literally sleep over at my friends' houses and they would sleep over at mine if we had like different consoles. So one of
Mm.
my friends had later on he had a 360, but I had a PS3, so we could never play with each other, and we both had like a Black Ops, like zombies and all that stuff.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
I would go to his house, we'd play Minecraft on his Xbox, because I don't know if Minecraft was on PS3 at this time. I think it was just on
Mm.
Xbox 360 first. And then he would come over to my house and we'd play like Uncharted or something, because like games just we didn't have. So yeah, instead of going outside, we would do that. And yeah, and now, yeah, as we said earlier, it just leads to everything we do now, which is play too much.
Yeah, it opens up the door for far too many. And recently, within the last 2 3 years,
Hmm.
games have actually been so well done.
Yeah.
They just like gradually build up to be so much better than the last one. It's amazing to see the progress of where we've both started really, and to where it is now. Aside from polygon Rubik's cube looking characters to now everything just looks photographic and
Yeah, classic, you
geometrically
know,
real.
Pokemon and Mario on a Game Boy to looking at the games we have now. It is like it's
Exactly.
incredible that it's in our like live. Like we
In
remember,
our lifetime.
like
And
yeah,
imagine in 10, 20 years' time and how much they're going to develop. Like The Last of Us 2, as brilliant as it is, probably the best looking game I've ever played.
I think so too.
Imagine that in 20 years' time, how janky and old that would look compared
Yeah,
to what we might have as a new standard.
exactly. Like I said, yeah, it's incredible. Just to think, like it's not even that long ago. It's like
No?
I moved to Ireland 15 years ago. That's when I was playing like, Prisoner of Azkaban. You look at that game now, it's just like, what the hell? Like it's only 2 generations ago. Well, technically it's gonna be 3 now, but yeah, there's something different. So that was how I got into
Gamification.
games. We never
Unreal.
really got into your thing. I could have went on
Yeah,
a
no, no,
rant.
no. There was a lot of similarities from your end that kind of coincided with mine, and I think the first memory I have is playing Crash Bandicoot on the NES, which was
Oh
developed by
yeah,
Naughty Dog, and it was released, what was it, 1996, around
yeah,
the
about
year I
that
was
time.
born. And it would become like the eighth best-selling PlayStation game of all time.
Hmm.
Um, and I just remember everyone was hyped about it, and just not only playing Crash Bandicoot on the original PlayStation, but Crash Racing and such, as I also played. And then I remember I used to have to go to, at the time, my family were like working 9 to 5s, or a bit later than that. My
Yeah,
dad had just gone through the military, and he'd been like secluded to night shifts at the time. So a lot of the time, my mum's like working overtime, or she couldn't get to us. She was at downtown somewhere, in the city. And I remember my sister and I had to be dropped off at a local daycare near the house, and we weren't, old enough to be on our own, or at least, as they thought.
Yeah.
And I remember just playing my Game Boy Advance, playing Pokemon Fire Red, going into Emerald, and then just trading and battling and having that fun. And gradually moving into, I think, my first actual console outside of the Game Boy Advance would have to be, you could go into Nintendo DS, the classic clunky brick-looking, it looks almost like a Tron, figurine, kind of like it was slanted. It looks like a brick, but it was Nintendo 64, and I remember Smash Bros and Mario Kart and Metroid and those sorts of games, and getting into those. And I remember also going over to my grandparents' place, and they didn't really have video games around their house, so we always would have to bring it. And times when we weren't allowed to keep us busy whilst the adults were sort of talking, my sister and I, rambunctious as we are, pretty annoying. I remember just playing Pitfall on the Atari 2600, playing like Sonic the Hedgehog Plug and the Sega Mini, where you can go through like it was level based, but they told their stories through chapters and such. But it was essentially just running from one end to the other as you progress through the entire thing. This is back when Sega was like big at
man,
the time. So like, you had the Genesis map, the Mega Drive Project compilation. You had like Space Invaders '91, Spider-Man '95, Substriker. I used to play '94, which was similar to Space Invaders.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it was just playing classic games. I remember just playing like. There was this really nice cinema where I lived near Bury St Edmunds that they shut it down now because it was far too expensive. But they used to have like the old classic asteroid field games. You just go on, or like the I forget what's the name of it is, but there is like this bug that comes zigzagging across the screen. And it travels all the way down, and you're supposed to shoot it down like bit by bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I played that along with like the Mario and Donkey Kong like barrel stuff, because he used to be like the main baddie before Bowser took the picture. So I know I'm such a boomer. Like,
I get it, because the thing is, as a child, I never had I've never had a Wii, I never had a DS, I never had an N64 or any of this. I literally only had PlayStation. But there was like an arcade thing in my town.
Oh yeah, I went to the arcade all the time.
And they had like all these things like like Mario and stuff. And that's where I got to experience all those type of games, because I didn't have those consoles. None of my friends did. In Poland, everyone had computers because consoles were too expensive, especially games, for the consoles. So everyone would have. Even like NoClip did a documentary, I think, on The Witcher, and they said how everyone had computers because you could pirate games. Because even if it was early 2000s, Poland, it's not that much. It's only been like 10 years, 12 years in like early 2000 since communism was basically gone in Poland. So people never really have that much money still, and that's why nobody had consoles. That's why I never got to experience those type of things. And then when I came here, it was like a bit too late for those type of consoles. So everyone had like PS2s and original Xbox and stuff. So the only way to experience, like I said, Mario and Space Invaders, all that things, were those arcades, or those tiny like arcade kind of things you could plug in straight to your TV. That had like 20 different games, and you play just Pong and Snake and all these random
People
games.
laugh at this, but Pong was amazing.
Pong is amazing. Tetris.
Undervalued. Or you might be laughing at this point, but Pong is seriously an underrated game.
It is. It's so competitive as well, honestly. All these games now, I think, they're all inspired by those games, FIFA. Look at FIFA. That's basically Pong.
That's literally Pong.
It's literally Pong.
Just more characters on screen.
Rocket League. That's Pong. Just the ball bounces around and you're a car that can jump. It's all the same games.
Well, yeah. When you think about it, there was this one game when you had to bounce the ball back to. You shoot it off and it would bounce to like a rectangle or square, and it would like remove it every time you hit it.
Yeah.
and then you would have to capture the ball wherever it was sort of landing.
Yeah, I get
That's
you.
literally FIFA. That is
Yeah,
FIFA
it
at its
is.
base core.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to go into my remaining questions, or do you want to go more into the
Yes,
Twitter
yeah, carry
questions?
on. Yeah.
Because I have 3 more of my questions, but we can either leave them. We can either do Twitter questions,
Go as you will.
or we
I'm
can.
here all day.
I suppose we'll do. One second. I suppose we'll do this. What is your favorite game from your childhood? And then
Favorite
there's a
game?
second part of this, which is your favorite film. It doesn't mean franchise, just one actual film. So I suppose we'll go with this.
Okay. Would you like me to start this?
Yeah, yeah.
Favorite game? I feel like this. I can obviously go with like Pokemon. You know, you go with the first game that's made such an immediate impact on as a door into that kind of realm of things.
Yeah.
But I think my first actual game, because you can't really. I mean, you can say handheld gaming consoles like the Game Boy Advance or the PSP, PS Vita. But if we're talking like consoles, I think my go-to would have to be Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2. That's what really I fell in love with that game. I can tell you how many times I have played that through and through. I was initially going to say Dragon Age, but we'll get to that later.
We will.
But I had a PlayStation before I had an Xbox. I remember going off to my mate's house always, like just playing Halo 2, Halo 3, and Zombie Infection, Omega Journey.
Yeah.
I just playing custom games and just racing, and it's just those were sorts of like Halo 3 and Spider-Man 2. If we're doing it exclusively on 2 different consoles, those were the 2 games that really kind of like iconic for me. You know, I could be Spider-Man. I could, chase Black Cat down the streets. I could not rob a bank, help her stop people from robbing a bank. I could go into what's his name? I can't believe I forgot his name. Who's got the clown house? He's got the orb. I can't believe I know Mysterio.
I was waiting. I was like, "Are you gonna say
from New York Islands and stuff, Staten Island?"
Oh man!
You had to, literally float on air, punching eyeballs in the sky, and then go to his clown house.
Yeah.
In like up in Manhattan or something, and you're having to go through this warped-looking, autistic, gangly-looking creatures of versions of Spider-Man, and you just sort of beating on him.
Yeah.
And then I go into Halo 3, just custom maps and playing Super Fiesta, and it was just such a unique time for gaming. I felt that it was fun. I think that's when we go back to how we first discussed this conversation, like how we first opened it, and how we both said like gaming at our time wasn't as open. It wasn't as applicable. It wasn't like it was kind of frowned upon in some ways, subtly. But I think after, not just saying after these 2 games specifically, but after, I felt there was a subtle change where people started to say, oh, actually, these games are highly venerated. Not just Spider-Man 2, not just Halo 3, but games like those 2 kind of open the door to certain new, conversations and new doors and new ways of kind of looking at video games, and those 2 were kind of my thing.
Yeah, no, that is for sure true. Because I remember when I was a child, I didn't really talk to people in school about video games. I had some friends, like in my estate and stuff where I lived, that had games, but in school you wouldn't really talk about it. But around those times, I remember people would start talking about Halo and, Spider-Man 2 one was the big one that just somehow everyone had. There's like all these people like in my class that like I didn't really talk to, and then turns out, oh, they like Spider-Man 2 on the PS2 as well. Like, oh, now we're best friends, There was also have you ever played Ultimate Spider-Man?
Oh, I have. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Man.
What a class.
I'm just looking at it now. Wow. So I remember the classic intro. You fight Venom. There's all that. The boy with the balloon. You have to fight the balloon. That was great as well. I remember playing Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 a lot. But for me, my favorite game. This is gonna be random, but I think it's because as this is called Nostalgia Cast. It is due to nostalgia. It would be Shrek Smashing Crash Racing. Oh, because
Donkey.
so the thing is, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't play the original Crash games until later on. I started with the Activision Crash games on PS2.
Hmm.
And I mean, maybe I might have like tried them out, but I remember actually playing them on PS2, and I really enjoyed the Crash racing game on PS2. So then, when I saw that there was a Shrek kart racer, I was like, I need to get this. And I don't know if you've ever played it, but it is amazing because Shrek has like a swamp monster he's like racing on. Donkey's flying on the dragon. Puss in Boots is on like a bull. You get to play as Little Red Riding Hood, who's on the wolf. Goldilocks is in it, and she's in a bear. Like, and
This actually sounds mental.
It's
I'm looking
amazing
at it right now.
It's amazing.
Is this... Okay, so the thing you're riding is an actual, like, it looks like a lizard, but I can't
As
really
Shrek
make it out.
or
Yeah, for Shrek. Yeah, because you're facing. There's you, the pigs, donkey,
yeah.
and then some characters you make, and then.
Oh, you don't make characters. They're all characters in the game.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, there's
'Cause
Humpty
there's two
Dumpty.
I don't recognise.
There's
Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty's in it. He has his own like kind
Oh
of
yeah,
cars.
yeah.
Yeah, there's Little Red Riding Hood, and yeah, Shrek
That's
is on this like swamp monster. It was literally just called Swamp Monster, from what I remember. What's his name? Pinocchio was in it. Prince Charming was this like huge black, like, I think, like horse. I don't know. I know it was on PSP as well, but I played this on the PS2 a lot, and I just remember because I loved Shrek as any kid did back
This is
then.
brilliant.
And you could
so
just play.
retarded.
You could just play as. Oh, there's actually I found an image with all these the characters. Yeah, so there's Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, Gingy, Puss in Boots, Prince Charming, Thelonious. He's like the guy who's he has the like executioner like hood. He's the guy who's killing people. He's on a black horse. Prince Charming is on a white horse. Goldilocks is on a bear. There's the three little pigs who are on an enchanted carpet. Pinocchio, who's on like a wooden horse. Yeah, Humpty Dumpty, and the Red Riding Hood. And I would play this with my auntie over and over again because like there was so many cool maps. You know,
Well, your aunt actually sat down and played this with you.
Yeah, I mean, she's like my sister. There's like 3.5 years between us. She's like about your age.
Oh,
She was born in
okay.
1996.
I was thinking of like someone in the 40s.
No. Yeah, so she moved here, yeah, like 2008, and then so we would be playing this about that time, and I just remember it was basically Mario Kart, just Shrek. You know, there was all these cups, all these different maps. Like you could race in far away, you could race in the swamp, you could race in the castle where the dragon is.
This is brilliant.
There was a cemetery, like all these amazing like maps, and
Why does Dragon look like she has downs?
I know she does. But one of my favorite memories from that is, so we didn't have two controllers because it was mainly my PS2, but for some reason I had a steering wheel. I don't know if you can see where this is going, but basically, one of us always had to use the steering wheel.
Yep.
But the steering wheel doesn't have. It doesn't have what are they called again? You know, the stick basically. You know.
The gear stick, yeah.
Yeah. So on the steering wheel, all you have is the X, circle, you know, triangle, square buttons, and then the D-pad, just up, down, left, right. So if you're using your thumbstick on your controller to move forward, you can do that on a steering wheel. But you could, so we'd always just have to kind of go forward with the D-pad. Like basically, my aunt would always use the steering wheel, and she would use the D-pad to move, and she managed fine. But then one day, the D-pad broke mid-race, and she was playing as Goldilocks on the bear, and well, she wanted to finish the race, but there was no way to do it. But if you jump, your character goes forward. So for a full lap, she would just tap X the whole time. And you just see, because I remember I was actually behind her at this point, so I was younger, so I was shit at the game, obviously.
Yeah.
And I just ride up to her and I look at her. And so imagine, look up the photo of Goldilocks on the bear, right, in the game. And just look at that bear and imagine that bear just jumping like a sheep over a fence. Because she couldn't run. And the way it jumped, it literally did like a sheep jump, like as you see in the cartoons and stuff. You know, when you're dreaming.
I find it funnier that she was beating you at this game.
Well, yeah. I was a child. I was shit at it. I mean, I was still like 9, but she was somehow better, even with a steering wheel. So she did a full lap. Obviously, I won. Like I passed her out, but still.
I say women are.
She just just had to jump because the thing broke. She had to jump across the full map, and we were just pissing ourselves laughing because it looked like it was just a sheep jumping through the map. Well, it was obviously this like huge bear. And that is honestly, I don't know, it's such a niche game. Like, I've never heard of anyone actually playing this, but I would love to play it. I think
it looks mental.
I'm pretty sure it came out on like a DS later on, but there's no way of me getting this. Like, I would have to get like a PS2 and somehow find the game. Yeah, it's on DS. I can see it, just a photo here. But oh man, I honestly I miss it. I really want to play it.
Like, they also do like a remastered version when like the new
imagine
reboot series comes out.
It would be beautiful. This and Shrek 2, because Shrek 2 was amazing as well. Oh man, I really miss this game. Like, that's all I want from life. Like, fuck, Crash, Nitro Fueled, whatever. Give me Shrek Smashing Crash Racing remastered. Just make it the graphics that it was. Just give me the game. Oh, but yeah, that was my favorite game as a child. Shrek Smashing Crash Racing. The more you know. Well, the second part of the question.
I was just laughing at Dragon's face.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't obviously a great game. For me it was, but I imagine if I play it now, it wouldn't be very good. Well, anyways, the second part of the question. What was your favorite film as a child?
And
this would kind of go to the question what Aiden says, which is your go-to movies as a child. I have 2. One was my favorite. The other one was the one I would watch more, kind of thing.
Yeah, go and start that.
Alright, so the one I would go to the whole time was Lion King, the original one, obviously. It wasn't like one of my favorites. Obviously, there's stuff like all the Harry Potter movies and a Lord of the Rings that I love, and they're like some of my favorites now. But as a child, I would just like them and I would watch them. But I had favorites, and so whenever I had to stay with my neighbors when as a child, when my mom would like go to work or something for a night shift, I would just bring my copy of Lion King with me and literally watch it nearly every single night. And obviously in Polish, because as a child I only watched movies in Polish. I don't think I've still seen. Actually, the only time I've seen Lion King in English was when we went on a school trip to London, and we went to watch the musical in London. That was my only time seeing it in English. I thought you were
going to say that the only time you've seen the English version was the new one.
I haven't even seen the remake. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. No, but the musical, honestly, the musical was amazing. But we had like. I could go on a tangent here. We didn't have great seats, obviously, because this is like an incredible, an expensive show on a West End, and we somehow got tickets for it, even though they're quite hard to get. So we had like seats really high up. And firstly, I'm scared of heights, and me and my friends were sitting at like the front row of the top, so I was looking down, and it was just like a huge drop, because it's obviously like a huge theater.
Yeah.
And then. This was the first night we were there, I think. So me and all the guys went. We had like an hour to go get food anywhere in around Leicester Square, and we went to Wagamama's, and just all had a bunch of ramen and just all these like Japanese food. So then none of us felt great, and we also decided to have sake, or as James says, sake, for the first time in our lives. So we were had kind of we were really full after the ramen, plus it just didn't sit well on everyone's stomachs. So everyone felt
Please
a
don't
bit
tell me you
sick.
shat
No,
yourself.
everyone
Like,
felt a bit sick. And then also we were off our heads, but we had to hide that we were off our heads drunk because obviously we were there with the principal and some teachers from the school. So the whole time, this thing is so long in real life. I think it's like a 3-hour musical or something with like a stop in between. And we couldn't really keep getting up and walking
you would
past
have.
everyone.
You are.
We couldn't. We didn't want to do
I'm
that.
covering my face. This is.
So
You were probably like the loudest people in there. Everyone looking towards you, like, shut the fuck
no,
up.
we
We're
were
watching.
quiet. We were quiet. We're trying to be as
Okay.
quiet, but like it's just it was so painful because everyone felt sick and everyone kept everyone needed to go to the toilet the whole time. But we didn't want to get up because we'd be blocking people's views because there'd be just random people next to us. Everyone like really expensive like clothes and stuff because everyone's like really sick. And so there's just like a 5 of us just sitting there dying, not even watching the
What a
musical, just
mess.
wanting it to be over. Well, anyways, so Lion King. Yeah, as a child, I would always bring the DVD of it to my neighbors, and I would just watch it every single night, and I loved it. But my favorite film as a child, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was released on DVD in 2005, but came out 2004 in a cinema. It was called Five Children and It. Have you ever seen it?
5 Children in It. No, doesn't ring a bell.
So it's a fantasy comedy drama adventure film based on the book Five Children and It from 1902.
Oh,
I literally just looked it up on Wikipedia now. Apparently the main actor is Freddie Highmore, and I never knew this as a child, obviously. And I never thought about it. And that's great because I love Freddie Highmore now. If people don't know who Freddie Highmore is, he was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he was in Finding Neverland.
Chronicles of Spiderwick, or
Yeah, and then he was also in Bates Motel and stuff, and I think he's a good doctor, so really good actor to be fair. And this film, I loved it. Like it was amazing. I haven't watched it in a really long time, and I think there's like a remake now, but it's called like Five Children and something, Four Children, something. It's like completely different. It's apparently from what I read, the new movie is based on a book that's based on the first book. It's basically the same story, just changed. It's like
diluted a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
So
okay,
some
well,
guys like, oh, your story's shit, so I'm gonna rewrite it. It'd be better.
yeah, and like it's the new one is shitter, but whatever. And so basically, it is this like creature that these 5 kids find, and it's around like World War One times in England, and so yeah, they find this creature and that can like grant them wishes. So they wish for like I want to be rich or something. And like I obviously can't remember exactly now, but then it turns out like it's kind of like Aladdin, like the as in the creature just yeah, like the creature just doesn't grant the wish the way they want, So like I think they go back home and like the whole house is being cleaned by itself or something, but then like it also like ruins itself, and then there's some stuff with money, and then the money's like stolen, and I don't know. It's basically just a really good fantasy film for kids, and
well, it looks interesting. For those who will see this,
it's gonna be on the screen. Yeah,
it looks like a green alien with a stash for some odd reason.
Yeah,
and then it's got 2 antennas, and then the plot summary just says like it's supposed to be a sand fairy.
Yeah.
So, but the image I'm looking at just makes it look like
just like an old green
it
man.
looks like Emmett.
Yes.
This.
It's just like it's like a different type of, it looks like a Grinch kind of, if that's that's a good description of it. Yeah, it's a really odd movie, but I don't know, I loved it as a child. The amount of like, I remember watching this all the time as well. Probably not as much as Lion King, because I think Lion King was easier to watch, but I don't know, I just absolutely loved it, and I think this would have been my favorite film as a child.
This looks so weird.
It is.
He lives in a clam.
Yeah.
Is there a purpose behind that, or?
God, I don't remember. It's been a really long time since I've seen it. At least it's been probably
at least. It's got Freddie Highmore, and I'm a big fan of his.
It's been at least 10 years since I've seen it, I think. But you should watch it. It was really good. Anyone should watch
I'll
it.
add it to the list. Always
So
up for weird things.
exactly.
Um, but I think for me, I was going to say Lion King as well, or at least 1.5. I
Hmm.
remember loving that one.
Oh, one and a
Um,
half. So good.
yeah, when it's just Timon and Pumbaa just going on on a side piece, just side commentary about their lives and meeting Simba and going around it, and just see like, a silhouette of just those two watching themselves as their life, plays out.
Yeah.
And then I love that. And I just remember watching all three of those, Lion King 1, 2, and 1.5. And I don't really know if it was a go-to, but I remember Tarzan, Hercules.
Oh,
A
Tarzan.
lot of
Like,
my early
oh my
films
god.
were Disney based.
Yeah.
Was it The Forest of Ferngully? I think that was the name of it.
Yeah.
Like you had
Something.
like the massive, you had Tim Curry's performances. I thought it was just about pollution, but apparently he was a demon. As deforesting, trees and such.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of the films I had watched early on revolved themselves around Robin Williams.
Yeah.
There was something about
Yeah.
like physical comedy that really caught my eye because a lot of things were just like subtle nuance, how you introduce words into speech or something, you play off words and such. And there was something about the humor of him that I was sort of attracted to. So then I went into um, the one that he played as a doctor. He was kind of helping kids by nursing them with humor or something. And then
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was one where I forget the name of it. I think it was Max or something, where he was born like a 40-year-old man. It was so bizarre to me. I was just thinking, how do you birth out a man who just looks like Robin Williams? Like he's like 7,
Hmm.
but he looks like he's turning 50 soon. And those sort of like films like Hook, you know,
Yeah.
I
Oh.
absolutely adore
Classic
those.
Hook.
Still holds up, guys. It still holds up. But I just fell in love with those, and then I gradually moved into Steven Spielberg's when he first started, like children's books, not books, films and
Films.
such,
Yeah.
and then later into books. And but yeah, a lot of my films were related around Disney, I would say.
Oh yeah, no,
So
for
Black
sure. Yeah,
Cauldron,
Tarzan for sure.
Fox and the
I mean
Hound.
Tarzan. Yeah, Tarzan. I was gonna say, but Disney for sure. Like Tarzan
Mm,
was there up there with some of my favorites. Like the first Tarzan, especially. Like it
mm.
was just so good. Like I've recently watched the Tarzan film from a few years ago, which is
Oh,
basically a sequel to the overall story of Tarzan. It's actually not that
mm.
bad, but uh, it just made me want to watch the original Tarzan and all these like Disney films like we all watched as children, you know.
Animation had such a different quality back then. I think the recent iterations of Disney films when it comes to animation, like was it the Princess and the Frog,
Yeah,
were called back to that time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think Princess and the Frog and that kind of, I don't know what it is about 2D, like all these remakes and stuff. I'm not really a huge fan of. I like the look of it, maybe like the aesthetically like pleasing display of special effects. That I'm very appreciative of, but I'm not a huge fan of I might change my mind with like Mulan and such.
yeah.
But the Lion King, terrible. They went too photorealistic. You lost a lot of the qualities of the quirks and expression within the eyes and around the mouth that had in the first original films. So I don't know. There's something about the 2D cartoon images that were a lot of because an animal is not going to have. You go Fox and the Hound. A fox is not going to have human personification amongst them. They're not really going to have, a frowning face. They're not really going to have a crying face. It's very unique to the animal, but it's like our own expressions reflected on, and then you try to remake it through CGI, and it doesn't really reflect as well, I think. And there was something about those films early on that I cried, I fell in love with them, and there was something true and honest about it, I think.
No, I completely agree. Like even now,
Yeah.
like they'll make some good ones here and there. For example, I actually really enjoyed Frozen 2, even though I hate Frozen. The first one and stuff. Uh, But there is something, there's that like magical thing about those like 2D Disney films from back in the day. That just can't be remade, as you said. Whether they do 3D versions of them or live action, it's just not gonna be the same. All right. Well, I suppose.
Well, where's the question to you?
Yeah.
Is if you had to choose any early or other animated films, that predated 2015 or a bit before then.
Yeah.
What would that be for you?
As like my favorite.
Yeah, or something that you would remake into CGI.
Oh, remake
entirely as a concept.
That's actually a tough one. I think. God, actually, I don't know. There's so many of them. Like,
I think for me,
a bunch of them have been already remade. That's the thing. They haven't been great.
I think the top two for me would have to either be Atlantis, or Treasure Planet.
Ooh,
those two,
actually,
hands down. Imagine
Treasure Planet would actually be a really good one. Yeah, I think Treasure Planet is the one.
Space in the world. The colours, look at it. A space adventure. I'm all for that. That film, I think, probably like my favourite Disney film aside from Tarzan.
Yeah.
So if I had to remake it, it would be that one.
That's actually that's a really good one. I didn't even think about it. I completely forgot about it for a second there. All right. Well, I suppose we'll go on to the next question, which is, if you could go back in time and become a fan of something you wish you were a fan of since you were a child, what would it be? So, for example, there's like any franchise that you became a fan of, like in your teens or even recently, but that has existed for a really long time. Like, what would that franchise be that you'd want to be a fan of from earlier on?
I think it blends into Jas's question, which is correcting you and your views.
My
on
wrong
Kingdom
opinion,
Hearts.
Of course, yes.
Your absolutely wrong, disgusting view of Kingdom Hearts, and explain why you were so fucking wrong about it. I love them. I really do have. Jas is really going to burn me about this, but I do love them. I really do. They're not the best thing ever. I'll say that. They're not my favourite games of all time. I have other things that I would value a lot more than that, but I can understand why people would love these these games so much. Because there is a cinematic quality about them. There is a sense of you're discussing friendship, love, companionship, trust, meeting new people, new friends, new experiences, so I think, because I'm a bit late to all this, right? So I've just recently started, within the last 2 or 3 months, the Kingdom Hearts, series as a whole. Although I've had to postpone some of it as new games are being brought out, as I will eventually go back to it. But I think that is one of the few series or franchises I would have liked to have experienced along with other people. If you equivalate it to, God of War, or you go to Red Dead Redemption 2, because I've not played the first one of Red Dead,
I've never
played it.
Yeah, I've never finished it, but I've played it.
And the same goes with God of War. I've played God of War 3, Aphrodite, if you guys know. Smash the X button,
man.
But I've not played the other games. I've seen all the cinematics, I've seen all the stuff, but I've not really played through. I've seen the stories and Kratos and all that, but I think Kingdom Hearts is one of those really special moments that you don't think it'll hit you, but once you've gone through it and you've enveloped yourself through it, you open up like, actually, you know what? As quirky as it may be, as a bit silly and cartoonish and all over the place at times, it is really fantastic. And I wish I had that time to pause at the moment here. I'll say, that moment when people were discussing, it's been 8 years or this amount of years since Red Dead Redemption 1, and then people played Red Dead Redemption 2, and I remember people just feeling that some sort of like build up. And I didn't have that build-up with Kingdom Hearts. I didn't have that build-up with Red Dead Redemption 2. But I still enjoyed those games. I still am enjoying those games. But going back to the question is, if I had to choose something, I would much rather have gone back and experienced with the amount of games they keep releasing and the story continuing and the longevity of it. I would have gone back to Kingdom Hearts because I felt like, okay, well, I can wait for Kingdom Hearts 2 and then wait, X amount of years until 3 came out and have that build up and share that with other people and socially just experience that, that sense of joy and excitement.
Yeah, that's actually
What's that for you?
That's a really good question. So I suppose I've always been a fan of it, but not as much as I would like to, and I think that would be Star Wars for me. So obviously, as a child, I've seen them films, when they were on TV, but
Yeah.
I never really invested myself into it. Like, my friends would have lightsabers, we'd play with the lightsabers.
Was it not really your thing?
We'd play like not really. I never, cared too much about it as a child. Like, it was fun. Obviously, I liked the idea of it. Like, my friends had lightsabers. We'd fight with lightsabers. We'd play Lego Star Wars over at their house. But I never like bought the films. I never, watched Clone Wars as a child or any of that stuff. Like, I only really started getting into it like, I don't know, about the age of 12, 13. Like, I when I played like
Well, it's not too late.
Unleashed 2, those type of things. I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. And obviously, like I said, I enjoyed the films as a child. Like, I watched them a lot, but it wasn't really something like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings that I was like completely invested in and like loved.
Ah, yes, yeah. No, I get
So
you.
I feel like if there were to be something, I think it would have to be, like Star Wars. So as a child, I could have gotten those, Lego Death Star and, play the actual Lego games properly as a child and have my own lightsaber, read Legends somehow, as a child, try to get the books, buy the films. I remember back in like 2010 or 2011, around that time, they showed, I think, Phantom Menace in a cinema in 3D for like a week. And I didn't go because I was like, oh, I don't really care. And as bad as Phantom Menace is, I mean, it's not the worst, but
it's not that bad.
It's not the worst.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Cass, you're talking to me. You can discuss
it's
this.
It's not the worst,
without,
but like
criticism.
it's obviously
Guys,
not
we're
great.
just gonna say we like Phantom Menace, so fuck you and your opinions.
The prequels are actually not bad.
Prequel gang.
But I would love to see that in 3D now. Like, just the idea. Like, imagine seeing it. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. So I feel like, if I were a fan, like a proper fan, as much as I love Star Wars now at age nearly 21, if I would have done that from like being the age of 4 or 5, even maybe getting to see Revenge of the Sith in cinemas or something, it just would have been all amazing, just seeing all that stuff, just experiencing it with everyone else, just like you said with Kingdom Hearts, just doing that with the with Clone Wars and stuff, because I only watched, like, I've seen episodes here and there, but I've only properly started watching Clone Wars this year, and I've seen the first 2 seasons, and then I got caught up with other stuff, but then I watched the ending of the last season just to see what happens and how it ties into Order 66 and all that kind of stuff, and I love it. So I wish I got to experience all those things from the beginning, if that makes sense. Well, the beginning of being a child.
Well, I was going to ask you, was that decision, that thing that clicked, because it does exist within, a fantasy.
Yeah.
But was it difficult for you to get into it because it wasn't, surrounded behind sci-fi and space and such?
Yeah. I enjoyed sci-fi. I love the Alien movies. Like, I always watch those with my mom. But I never really
didn't click as much with it.
I much preferred, like, medieval fantasy than sci-fi as a child. And obviously there are aspects of that, in Star Wars, but it's not the same thing, You don't have people with bows and arrows and hoods running around the rooftops and, dragons and elves and stuff in Star Wars. I mean, you could say you do, but it's not the same. So I think, that was the thing that was like keeping me away from it. And what made me click, I think, would have to be actually the first Unleashed games. I remember playing them and I was like, oh, it's Star Wars. Obviously, I knew what Star Wars was. Like, I've seen the movies, I enjoy this. And then I played the games. And it's like, I love this. Like, I love the idea, like the different colored lightsabers and just all these force like powers you could have. And that's when I was like, okay, I love Star Wars at that point. So That would be mine.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna go into more Twitter questions, and I'm gonna leave the last question I have until later. Um, so which Twitter question do you want to go into? There's Joe,
Well,
Endanger Pelican, Nicholas, Joshua Wardman.
I kind of want to, yeah, let's bleed right into Joshua Wardman's. What is your favorite gaming moment?
All right. Well, for me,
I've got quite a few, but I've broken it down and simplified it without rambling too much.
okay,
So
you
go on,
you
you
go. No,
start.
you go first then, because
You would want me to go start? You would want me to start?
yeah, because I mainly only have. There's a good moments, but there's the one that's like my favorite moment.
Okay, I'm gonna look forward to it. It, is it The Last of Us?
No, no, no.
Oh, yeah,
I feel
okay,
that's a bit too recent.
okay.
I mean, it's not really, but like, yeah.
Well, I've jotted down. I had to surmise some of my thoughts about this, but so I've jotted down at least three big moments that have stand out for me recently. We'll discuss Dragon Age later because I know you and I will get into it, but
Yeah.
there are certain moments from that. But I want to do big moments that have really stuck with me when it comes to favorite gaming moments. So I'm going to answer in the three parts
Okay, go.
response, but and it's only based on three games, and most of my favorite moments from games all come from a position of kinship and relationships. So the first one will have to be
Is this going the same
God of
direction?
War.
Okay, I was gonna say, is this gonna go the same direction as my answer? Because you said kinship and relationships.
It might
I was
be
like,
with the same person at this
is it gonna
podcast,
be the same thing? All
It
right,
might
go
be.
on. God of
But
War.
the first one was God of War with Kratos.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just going to quote a simple line that really just stuck with me. So he's like, boy, here. So I just
Yeah.
go a bit deeper. Boy, here. On the day you were born, I made two knives, mixing metals from my home and from this land. One for myself, and when you were ready, one for you. Today is that day. And then he asks, so I'm a man now, like you? And Kratos goes, no, we're not men. We're more than that. The responsibility is far greater. And you must be better than me. Understand, say. And then there was this moment between his son and Kratos that was just between the two of them. And there was something that stuck with me that made me realize that actually this is kind of resembling my father and I's relationship growing up. It was just a lot of the discipline. For those who have seen what my dad looks like, he is, he's been to the military. He's a big man child. He's cuddly, he's soft, he's a nice person. But a lot of people thinks he's a juggernaut. He's an aggressive man. So growing up, I had the same idea of him. He was a very quiet man. He kind of had there was a sort of purposeful way about him, where everything my dad had done were kind of it was no nonsense talk. He didn't do small talk. He didn't do the little moment. It was kind of it was black and white for him, and it still is. Although he's a bit more relaxed. So playing through this, it got me teared up, and I thought I thought I was Kratos. I'm become my own man and all these things, and then I realized actually no, I'm Atreus. I was a arrogant cunt. I was a prick at times. I realized, oh, actually, I'm his son, so I must be, sick, And I remember when I was younger, going through school, it's like, oh, what's your dad doing? And kind of like, oh, my dad's military, and there is this sense of reciprocation where, oh, my dad's military, so oh, it must mean Zach is hard. He's dad must be tough and all that. It really isn't. My dad works with PTSD people. He works in mental health and all that. So I think the sentiment echoed my dad and I's relationship, and so that stuck with me
Yeah.
for a long time. And then it bled into my second moments was with John and Arthur discussing loyalty, and then Arthur seeing things more clearly, like at the train station, and just saying, you know what, I've had enough of this. Plans have been fucked up, and things are not going the way they had planned. And Arthur's kind of had it, and then she's kind of making amends as he's going on. And there's this kind of redemptive hero's journey. He's kind of this grey character. He's not so much. He's kind of an anti-hero, in a way. But I think the moment that really hit me was when Arthur was at this train station with the nun he met in Saint Denis. After, if you've done the mission, you know.
Yeah, I've
And
done
he
this.
reflects
I
on how
know
he got
you.
TB, just really just doing nothing. He was just punching guy, and he was really upset about it. At the time, he's like, you need to pay this loan back or this payment back. And he reflects upon it on a lot of the stuff he's been doing somewhat in vain, and he regrets his actions. He's a bit remorseful. And he goes, I've had a bad life, sister. And the sister goes, and she's only met him a handful of times. And you would think, oh, she doesn't know me. She doesn't actually know me. But she goes, I know you. That's the problem. You don't know you. You're so confused and you're so in the state of, you've been doing this life for so long and you think this has been the right thing. But really, it's just kind of, you're doing this for the sake of others and not for yourself. You need to do something for yourself in the end of it. And then at the end of it, who's saying that through all the bad in your life, he's found some sense of good in it despite the grief. And the nun goes, a sort of self-reflection. My husband died some time ago. Life is full of pain, but there is also love and beauty. And then this sort of gave some clarity to Arthur. And he's like, you know what? I've done some really shitty things. I've done some really bad things, but now there's some purpose. And he's found a new way of having to sort of give back to people. And he's afraid of what will come, what he's done. Is he a good man? Will one good act write it all the bad off,
Yeah.
And then the sister just goes, take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act. You could have like 99% bad, the 1% might change it all. It might not, but at least you've done something noteworthy. And then just wrapping that up with how Arthur and John, like the last discussion between them is, you're my brother. And he's like, yeah, I know. And he's taking the blunt for him. He's like, everyone's shooting at him. And John's running off away back with Abigail and his family. And Arthur's just having one last shootout. And it's a brilliant scene. And then the final moment, it's the last of the three to answer the question. I'm really sorry. This is such a long
It's all right.
response. And I'm sure you've got one as well. I think everyone knows this scene, but it was Sarah's death.
Okay. Yeah.
And at Sarah's death, Joel and Ellie at the house, Ellie being afraid of being alone again. Joel reaching for Sarah's watch when he talks about surviving through the good and bad, the great and the terrible. When he at the last bit before Ellie asks him, is he telling the truth? He reaches for it and he's like, you just have to survive. You do certain things that are really grey and questionable, but you do it for the sake of another person. You do it for the sake of your own survival as a means of, there's some sort of purpose behind it. And, that for me, just those three moments, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and The Last of Us, really just clicked with me. Kinship, relationships, bonds. And it's just,
Yeah. So
got me emotional.
I had one, but now that I think I have two.
Yeah, go on.
So the first one is actually it's also from Last of Us, which, as most people know, it is my favorite game of all time. It would actually be the ending. Like the conversation between Ellie and Joel as they're just outside Jackson. Just that short little thing, when like she's asking him about like everything he said to her, like promise it, it's not a lie, and he's like, like he promises, and she's like, all right, okay. That would probably be that's one of my favorites, just the whole thing. And the second one, of course, quite common in this community, it's the intro scene to Assassin's Creed 2.
I was really gonna add that to the list, but that's too obvious,
It is really obvious. It's obvious, but honestly, because I've played Assassin's Creed 2 before it was out, as I said in one of my videos. My friend's uncle was a game tester, and he just had it, and we were kids, we didn't have internet at the time because it was like 2008 or something. So we're like, oh, it's just a game. We didn't know anything about it. So he's obviously he wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, these kids are gonna go tell the people that they're playing this game that nobody knows about. So I remember playing that, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed it because after I've already read a bunch of books by this time about people running around the rooftops and being thieves and all that kind of stuff. So this time when I played it, I was like, oh, I really want to play this. And then when the actual game came out, I was so excited for it, but I didn't know what to expect, because all I've seen was just running around. I didn't experience the story. So when you climb up to the top of the church with your brother, and they're saying the classic lines, and then the title screen comes up.
The best. It is a good life we lead.
It may never change. It may never change us. And then, the title screen comes up, and then obviously, like a few minutes later, your whole family is like dying. Like like your father and your brother. So half your family, well, your brothers. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? And this is like 2009. So I'm like, 10 years old, because it's November, I suppose. And I was just like, what the fuck? And obviously, as much as I hate Assassin's Creed now, it ended in 2013. There has been no new games since Black Flag.
Oh, yeah.
0. There's been nothing. Just, I don't know, the memories between, 2009 and 2013, just, all the E3s. I remember one of my first E3s, I think was 2012, watching the Assassin's Creed 3 demo of the snow area, and I was like, oh my god, you can climb trees, and there's snow, and you can hunt animals, and like all this nostalgia of just playing the games. Assassin's Creed 2 is like one of the few games I've actually replayed a bunch of times. I've once done the full game in one sitting during the summer. Like, I bought the game again because I had it, but then I don't remember what happened. And then I started playing at like 9 a.m. and played till like 11 p.m. and just finished the full game, just sitting on my floor. I remember getting up to go pee at like 5 p.m. and both my legs were just dead. I couldn't actually get up. So I suppose when it comes to nostalgia, it has to be the opening of Assassin's Creed, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I suppose this can also go into James, aka Trials PS4 question. He has a question saying, is there a certain franchise that either of you particularly enjoy, and your favorite moment from any of the games in said franchise? So do you have any for that? Because I have one for sure.
Well, that was the thing. A lot of the moments I've discussed, whether that be like Kratos with his son and discussing, be a man and, but, or, Red Dead Redemption with like loyalty to your friends and such, or The Last of Us about doing things for your family and such. I was actually saving Assassin's Creed to this point. So for me, it was, because I got a 360 quite late in the game, late in the process. Because I had a friend who like I said before, I would go over to my mate's house and play Halo 3 with him. So I didn't have it at the time. My family always travelled, we always moved. We didn't have time for that sort of thing. So handheld devices were always the go-to. But favorite moment from any games in the said franchise, it would have to be. It was officially the first Assassin's Creed game that I had played. Although I had gone back through all the game stuff, I was introduced to it by a friend of mine, AJ, who was like, oh, check out the cinematics, and you went into like the literal trailers from Tobuscus and such, and it was Assassin's Creed Revelations that got me into this, and it was Ezio's return to Masyaf with Sophia, and he was discussing the Creed and what Altair had done with the Order, and it just sort of closes the chapter in such a beautiful way, and it goes like, do you regret your decision to live your life as an assassin for so long? And he's like, I do not remember making that decision. This life it chose me. For 3 decades, I have said the memory of my father and my brothers and fought for those who suffered the pain of injustice. And I do not regret those years. But it is time for me to live for myself and let them all go and let go of all this. And then Sophia just goes. And this is when I started like tearing up a bit. And it's like, then let go. You will not fall far. And then he sees Altair and hears him. And then he's going through the hallway, and then I have seen enough for one life, and it closes with Desmond, and I just felt like that was such like
even just think about it now, like
it chills. Altair is walking through the corridor, he's putting out the torches, and he's sitting down in the chair, and he's just passing away of old age, 76, and then Ezio comes in a few decades later, and he shows up, and he's kind of full circle, and Nick Devitt does this such good fan service. I wouldn't say fan service, but it was just
It is
service to
though.
the fans
Yeah.
so well that it was beautiful. It was closing a chapter for me. And although I can say things like, "Oh, I liked Black Flag" or aspects of Unity, or so on and so forth, but again, like you said, it kind of capped it for me. I was like, that was it. That's when like Altair and Ezio's story kind of came to a close, and that's when AC kind of wrapped things up for me. It was like, that's my favorite moment from any said gaming franchise.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I haven't played Revelations since it released because I don't replay games usually. So I haven't played the story of Brotherhood since 2010. I haven't touched Revelations since 2011. So like, just even the thoughts of like all those things back then, like it adds even more because I haven't. I mean, obviously I've seen like James's streams and stuff, but it's not the same. I haven't experienced it myself since then, and I think it's like it's something that I've done, like I've chosen personally to do. It's like a closure. It's like I've played it, I've loved it, I still love those things, but it's closed. It's like a chapter that was in my life, and not that I don't want to touch it again, but it's like I want to.
No, but it's like you've already read that book
it,
and you don't really want to revisit it.
As much as I love it, as much as I love it, I just want to preserve it the way it is, kind of. You know what I mean? It's like I'll always remember it perfectly. Like I don't need to replay it. I could tell you the full story, just right like that. So yeah, for that would be the thing. But for me, and obviously, as you said a few times, we had to get onto Dragon Age.
Oh no, it's gonna go on for ages.
So from Dragon Age Origins, it would be kind of I know the ending was great. So, but I suppose like when Reardon leaped onto their archdemon while I was like flying, and he's like attempting to like single-handedly like end the blight, you know what I mean? While like riding on the back of the blighted old god, like just he sacrificed and like like he crippled the demon and stuff, but like so he couldn't fly. And then like you had to fight like on Fort Draken, just like the whole thing, and then like how just the sacrifice, the whole section, it was just it was just amazing.
For those that don't know,
this is like
very, very, very,
nobody's
very short summary of it. So Dragon Age Origins, bad guys come in, Darkspawn, kind of like orcs from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, these like demons
taking over the land. Good guys, Grey Wardens, they come in, and Reardon, who Cash just mentioned, one of those guys, he stabs a guy, and the scene is so cinematic. Like there are moments in this that felt like the Battle of Helm's Deep. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With like,
it is. And he's like one of the most heroic.
It's my favorite game of all time, and I advocate this for anyone who. I mean, it's not aged well. I will say that it's very. I wouldn't say clunky, but it's very basic when you look at it now. But there's something about the story that is so special. When you say you have like dialogue options in games now, but like you had like 6 to 8 lines of dialogue you could ask, and then the lore of it, the story of it, the characters were so well diverse and deep that it just felt like I don't know. It was like you were reading a book in front of you.
Honestly, that's the thing. Like if there was any game that I would like compare to Lord of the Rings, it would be Dragon Age Origins. And I bought EA Access or whatever it's called, Origin Access, and it has Dragon Age Origins, and I've installed it, but for some reason it just won't run. Not that my laptop can't run it, there's just something off. So I can't play it, and I haven't played it since God knows when I've played it. Like when I was not a child.
I'll fly over, I'll bring my Xbox and you're playing
honestly,
it. You can have my copy.
I really want it. Like I should, I would love to. And that's
I've got Awakening as well.
This had everything. This free version, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out how to actually get it to run, because I love it. I remember it, but I probably don't remember it. Like, like I couldn't talk about it as clearly as I could talk about, I don't know, The Last of Us or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's been so long since I've played it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to be kind of like an ad right now. Mm-hmm. So people who are listening to this, we've harped on this for far too long. You can skip it later on if you don't want to hear this. But
there's going to be a timestamp,
brief summary.
If you want to skip Dragon Age.
Like, I know I kind of gave a brief summary before, but I want people to play this at some point, because eventually there will be a sequel, Dragon Age 4, which I'm very keen on.
That's actually
Inquisition had its faults.
yeah. That's going to lead to my last proper actual question. So
yeah, go yeah.
no,
go
but that's
on.
gonna be
Yeah,
later. That's gonna be later.
Oh, do you want to save it for later?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I'll
you
save
can
the
talk what
summary
you're
for
saying now.
later.
No, you can talk to the summary now. I'm talking about
we
Dragon
can
Age
talk
4
about
is
Dragon
going to
Age
go
4
into my
later. Okay. So, Dragon Age Origins deals with the Blight, which is kind of, think of Mordor, the bad guys who. It's very deep. I don't want to go too deep about this and lose the audience, but you have these orc-looking figurines, not figurines, characters who are called like the Blight. You have Darkspawn, as they're called. Orcs are Darkspawn, okay? And they're ravaging the land, they're taking over things. And the Grey Wardens, which are sort of the peacekeepers, the council, they're the ones who will enlist people into their ranks by drinking a cup of Darkspawn blood. And those who survive the process, part of the joining, will be part of the Grey Wardens. And now they're given certain abilities through that blood that heighten their senses, and now they have a connection to the Blight and can see things through the Archdemon, who is kind of the leader of all the Blight, the leader of the Darkspawn, and this is kind of like a demonic-looking dragon. And as Grey Wardens, you have gone through years and decades of war and peace and all that. So you've gone through a certain amount of time of peace, and this is like the fourth or fifth Blight. There's been several times before, and the Grey Wardens come back time and time again, but this time seems a bit dire. So then the Grey Wardens go out and they collect through the treaties they've established and say, we need the Dwarves of Orzammar. So think of the Mines of Moria, think of, that thing. And then you've got elves who kind of are nomadic people. They're kind of vagabonds traveling around, hippies, if you will, and they live out in poverty or out in the forest somewhere, and you're collecting those treaties to aid in your fight. And you've got humans and nobles and magicians and the demon world and spirits and magic and Tower of Mages and Templars, and you have to collect all these treaties and gather this army before the Darkspawn rush into what's the area called, the Lothan, or what's the Origins location? I forget, Cass. Do you remember?
It does start with L. Fuck.
I want to say Lothan.
It's something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. And Blight keeps spreading, and so you're going through castles, dungeons, prisons, and it's just such a beautiful story about you as a protagonist collecting on these treaties and developing new friendships, companionships, and you've got 10 plus characters in your party, and each character is so you would think there's too many when you have that amount, but your company, your party, helping in the final fight, you can deploy certain races into the fight, and they do certain individual tactics, but the story just revolves around going to a pub, you're having to collecting a bounty. It's very, very nice, I would say. I mean, I don't know how else to sell it, Cass. How would you describe Dragon Age Origins to newcomers?
God, just the perfect RPG.
Yeah, honestly, it really is.
It's obviously, like you said, it hasn't dated well. If you don't,
it's dated. It's not that great.
If you mind an older looking game, and it doesn't feel great as well to play, but that's the thing. Obviously, it's so special, and people don't often talk about Dragon Age Origins that much. And everyone loves Inquisition. I found Inquisition was fine, whatever.
It was good, yeah. I liked it.
Dragon Age 2 had its moments.
Dragon Age 2 was a rush.
It was rushed, yeah. It had its moments.
One dealt with the Blight, second one dealt with the repercussions and after the war.
Yeah. Exactly.
And kind of the wars versus the Templars and that kind of dynamic. And then that sprouting, each thing kind of bled into the other. Blight, into two kind of the Mages' war of the Templars who were kind of controlling them. Bled into Inquisition, was kind of an all-out war between the two factions, alongside with invading forces and demons and more of the blights and such. And
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Like, the way I'll describe it is literally, if you want a Lord of the Rings game, Dragon Age Origins is
it
the good
is
one.
just
That is honestly the best way to describe it.
a second-hand version of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like the full battle of Denerim, like the red skies and everything. Like, oh my god, it's so good. Like I said, a reared and jumping archdemon
charging into battle.
The sacrifice, of the world. It's just so good. It's so good, man. Dragon Age Origins. Okay, well, that was Dragon Age Origins anyway.
Rant over. You guys can now rest easy. You can skip it. Here we are. We've completed Dragon Age discussion, and that's the end of the podcast.
There's 4 more questions. No, 2, 3, 4, 5 more questions. From Twitter. So we'll go to Ben Higgins saying, first game you both remember completing. For me, and this is gonna be short, it's honestly Tekken 2. On the thing, it was PS1. I think it was PS1. I don't know. I just remember. I don't know if you could complete it because there was kind of like a story mode. I don't know if it was actually story, but there wasn't arcade. It was just actual like story because there were kind of boss fights as Tekken games have every few characters. But I suppose that would be the first game I remember actually completing, like, going through the full thing. And because Tekken 2 was so short, as Tekken games aren't necessarily long, I remember just replaying them a bunch of times, all the different characters and stuff. And even, to be fair, they actually tell a really good story. Like, the Tekken franchise has some pretty good lore. Even, to be fair, the Tekken film, like, it's not the greatest.
No.
But like, the story isn't actually bad. Like, it still tells this, the
still
overall,
holds up.
It tells the overall story of Tekken. And I actually enjoy it a lot. Like, the story part of the film. So yeah, Tekken 2 would be mine. What about you?
Again, short answer. Super Mario Sunshine is mine.
That's the one I've never actually played.
I was such a classic, and I remember just like Yoshi and just like the water squirter, and just it's so nice, just climbing through everything. And how it was annoying at times, because you're slipping down a hill. You got to one vantage point and you just fell off the other, and but I loved it. It was so lovingly innocent in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nicholas asks, music that brings you back to car rides as a kid. You can go first on this one because I know
part of this is not going to make you happy, but I think for the stands it will. But go on, yes.
Mine is going to be so random, but so okay. Think about this.
I'm not going to even know who they are.
No, you will, because this is car rides. Yeah, everyone knows who this person is.
I just assumed like it'd be indie music.
So imagine it's 2005, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're driving a yellow Fiat Punto.
Okay, I'm driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're not driving. You're in the car, but like, your dad is driving. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in the back seat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're going fishing with him in this like forest nearby. Yeah. There's like a lake and there's
I'm going
forest.
fishing. Okay. Yeah. Picturing a scene. Yeah. Laying it out.
You look at the windows. It's all peaceful. Nice. Birds flying around.
So nice.
And inside the car, it just scooter on full volume. It is honestly it's Scooter. For some reason my dad loved listening to Scooter while driving the car, and the thing is he's into like rock and metal and stuff, I mean he's really in any type of music, but for some reason he just listened to Scooter in the car whenever we go fishing, and so when I think of car rides I think of Scooter. And for those who
you got some people looking at you like through the window, like
honestly, and for those who are too young who know who Scooter is, he like a German DJ kind of person. I'm gonna show him on the screen his face. Okay. It's really hard to describe. I mean, if you're our age or even
describe the kind of music what do you like about it? Certain memories. Whilst fishing or driving. Like, what did you and your dad do?
Well, that's the
like headbanging. Do you like discuss things?
We would just sit there in silence. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Like obviously we would maybe talk, but it wasn't like we were going mental to the music. It was just there, and it's just the most random music to play. It's like I'm not gonna play a piece of music on the podcast, but Scooter is basically just like a imagine you're going to a concert or something, and it's like an EDM concert these days, I suppose, but back then with Scooter, you just take a lot of drugs and you just jump around and, like you said, headbang and stuff. To this German blonde guy just shouting stuff to like really quick music, and it just doesn't go at all. But like a peaceful car ride. That's why it's just like such a vibrant memory I have of just
that simplest thing, right? You know, peaceful times call for peaceful music, Kacper.
Tell my dad that, not me. Later on, when we'd go out,
your dad was just vibing. He was just having a good time.
I would. The thing is, like, when
we're out in the forest,
when we'd get out to the forest, he'd like open up the windows, so the poor animals walking around were just listening to Scooter.
I imagine your dad's in mental case. He's like a can of lager in his hand. He's like, we're driving to the lake.
It's like Dad, 7 in the morning. We're going fishing.
Like, Dad, it's not that big. Where's the lake?
Yeah, for me, so yeah, Scooter. And I'm gonna leave a link to my favorite Scooter song. In the thing, if you want to listen to Scooter, if you don't know who he is. I mean, like I said, if you're our age, or, you know, if you're born between, like, I don't know, I suppose...
Before 2000. Sorry, Ashton.
No, before, like, 2000. Yeah, actually, before 2000. You know who Scooter is. So you don't need to know. But it would be Jumping All Over the World. You probably know what that is. Yeah, that song. Actually, when did that come out? That could have been... Because here it says 2009, but I don't know if... I would say...
2007?
Probably. Let me check. Wait, okay, that's why its video's coming up. I was wondering. Yeah, 2007. Germany, 2007.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh,
November 20. So yeah, it would be around 2007, 2008 we'd be listening to this. Yeah, so Scooter, that's mine. What's yours?
Well, mine was a mixed bag.
Okay.
No, because again, my family travelled all the time growing up, and I had moved so much growing up as well. So, a lot of the time was just car rides and just, you know, like I said, Game Boy Advance in hand, and then you just listen to music. So, on one side, I would have classical, jazz, and then completely 180, you know, metal music with my mum, you know, or like, you know, go to Pearl Jam or Korn, and then you go into and then with my dad it would just be kind of like he would stick between 70s up to 90s, and he wouldn't have anything else, you know. He'd just very stubborn. He's like, no, this is the only good time period for music, and that's it.
My dad says the same
music.
thing.
Like, Dad, but there's some good stuff here. Like, no. So for me, it was, you know, for my mum, it was John Mayer. I know you don't want to hear this, but it was John Mayer, Continuum, The Clarity, and just that sort of got me into it. And then Aerosmith with Get On Your Wings in 1974, you know, like songs like SOS, you know, Train Kept a Rolling, Pandora's Box, and then Get a Grip with 1993, Fever, Living on the Edge, which was a personal favourite of mine, which is just Steven Tyler just dressed up like a drag queen, and he's hitting on a child. Like, he's dressed up like a professor, like a just a teacher. Yeah. And he's hitting on this kid who's like 12 or 13, and the kid's like, yeah, I'm getting it. Like, mate, you don't really know. Like, it was like proper nonce. Like, this is weird.
I know.
And then Crying, and then Crazy.
Yeah.
And then and from my dad's side, it was more like Billy Joel. So you had like my favourite album of all time, A Stranger. So like you had Moving Out, which was about like every Irish and Polish or Italian kid trying to make a living within the United States. She's Always a Woman to Me, which was kind of like a love song to Billy's then wife, who had sort of helped him through some bad contracts in financially difficult times. And then you can go into like Only the Good Die Young, which discusses how a guy is sort of courting this girl and trying to shag her, but she remains Catholic and virtuous in her chastity, and he seeks her even more. So it's like, you know, I can't get to you, but I'll have you. It's like the one who, you know, playing hard to get.
Yeah,
And then this is the big one. I want to hear. I think you can offer some insight into this. But Pink Floyd, time and time again. I had to change my opinion about this, because originally it was my favorite album of theirs was The Dark Side of the Moon. was from 1973, which, you know, you had Money, which became like the band's first hit within the US. Like it got 13th place in like, what was it, the Billboard of the Hot 100 or something.
Yeah.
And it was noted for like the tape loop and how the money related to sound effects like coins and jingling sound in the background.
Yeah.
And that was so iconic for the time. And you had like Brain Damage, Eclipse. And it was the idea of the album was to make people mad. It includes the themes of like greed, the passage of time, death, and insanity, and like mental problems. And that sort of bled into like my now favorite. I had to revisit it, which now Ben and I have, you know, the same favorite with this. But The War from 1979, which was one massive rock opera that revolved around the character Pink, which was kind of based on like Syd Barrett and Roger Waters, is it? Whose dad died during World War II.
Yeah.
And it kind of all dealt with this metaphysical war Pink kind of put up to protect himself and isolate away from.
We've talked about this before, actually. I'm getting flashbacks.
Yeah, we have actually. Yeah. From abusive teachers, a cheating wife. Sorry about that, guys. The audio clipped out for a second. But getting back to the moment, was I had said that it was based on the character. It was based on Syd Barrett and Roger Waters, whose dad had died during World War II, and it all dealt with this kind of metaphysical wall that Pink had put up to protect himself and isolate himself from, you know, abusive teachers. He had a cheating wife at the time, and he he kind of separated himself from pain of life, and that each brick of that wall represented another layer of his pain, and that kind of added to it like a pin.
Yeah.
And he sees to ending his life by asphyxiating himself and going through all these hallucinations and seeing things and going down this descent of insanity. And he's finding, you know, comes to this place of, you know, guilt and remorse in his life, and it ends up with him sort of self-reflecting and judging himself. And he comes to terms with it and tearing down this will only define himself where he first started at the beginning of the album. So it becomes this 0 to 360, you know, it's like a full circle, hero's journey in some ways, where he starts to beg the question, like, okay, so is this the only hurdle I have? Is the big hill I have to climb, and that's it? You know, is everything? I still have hurdles to cross, but will it be as big as this one, or will I have to repeat this process all over again? Will I have to go through this and subject myself to all this pain, and, you know, or is it, you know, it's kind of, can he find a compromise? Can he feel centered? Can he have enough self-resolve to say, that's enough, this is it, you know, I'm content, let's move on, and where's the next challenge? So, you know, I was going to transition into you know, what that meant for you, like Pink Floyd, and what you liked from it, and during car rides and such.
My dad and I listened to Pink Floyd actually quite a bit together. We both, I don't know, for some reason, both of our favourite album is I Wish You Were Here. Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the whole thing. And for those who don't know, Pink Floyd, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is like a 9-part composition. It's 26 minutes long if you have all parts together. And actually, I remember listening to that quite a bit with my dad, because I had a Pink Floyd t-shirt when I was younger, and we were just driving around, and I was wearing a t-shirt, and obviously there's the whole thing about like Nirvana and Pink Floyd t-shirts and Ramones, even, that people wear the t-shirts but they don't know who they are. And my dad was actually listening to Pink Floyd. He was like listening to to Wish You Were Here, and I was wearing a t-shirt. He's like, "Oh, do you know what's playing?" I was like, "Of course I do." He's like, "Oh, I thought you were just wearing a t-shirt just to wear it as everyone else." I was like, "No, of course I fucking."
Well, my sister did that.
Pink Floyd. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do.
You had a lot of people who just wore shirts for the sake of the look of it, rather than like, "What's your favorite album?" What?
Yeah, exactly. I did that to a girl wearing a Ramones t-shirt on a night out. I was like, "Oh, Ramones! Like, I love them. What's your favorite song?" She's like, "Who?" Like, she was like,
what?
"Who are the Ramones?" I was like, "Oh, you bitch!
Get out! Take off that shirt. Well, actually, take off that shirt and fuck."
That's the thing.
We'll
she was fit. She was fit. So I was like, "Okay, I'll let you go. I'll let you off this one time." But yeah, no. For me, it would be like, listening to my dad, like listening to it with my dad, quite a bit. We also listened to a bunch of like Polish 80s music, like similar to like Pink Floyd and stuff.
Polish atheist music.
80s, sorry.
Oh yes, yeah. I was like, atheist. I didn't know that was a genre.
They probably were atheists. No, there's actually some really good songs. I'll send them on to you. You might not understand what they're saying, but I'll send them on later when I actually find them. there are some really good like classic baller songs. But yeah, no. So yeah, for me it would be "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." That would be my like if I think of car rides, because even later on, because it is like 26 minutes long. So even if I just sit there by myself, if I just put earphones in, I would just listen to that, because 26 minutes. That's probably like that's often how if you're going somewhere close enough. That would be enough for the like one way journey. Like if you're going to the beach or something, because there's beaches like 10-15 minutes away from my house. So that later on in my life, like past Scooter, so like past 2010, it would be "Wish You Were Here" with Pink Floyd.
Oh yeah.
All right, and then
that album gets me emotional. Like
it
I
does.
will still have such a good time.
Mhm.
His best example of it that Ben sort of pointed out. Like I will not sit down and just listen to all of Smiths. I
Yeah.
might as well hang myself. After that.
I mean, I would do that. I'd listen to the Smiths fully.
Loki, you and me.
But it's me.
I mean, not kill herself, but listen
No.
to music.
Yeah.
Maybe both. But no, but it was one of those that it can be very emotional, can be very depressing.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather there's more to grab, I suppose, or hang on to with Pink Floyd rather than go to Smith or something. So it was one of those few things that I could just binge, but I'd have to be in the mood for it.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like I only listen to the Smiths when it's like 4 a.m. and I'm just laying there in bed.
Oh shit! It's 7 a.m. What am I doing?
Shit. Same with honestly, same with Pink Floyd. I don't know. I mean, especially with "Wish You Were Here," I wouldn't really just listen to it overall like that. Only on like car rides or something, or like late at night. All right. Well, I suppose there's 2 more questions. Joe, aka Founded Scarab. Of course, if you're not subscribed to him, subscribe to him because he makes some amazing content.
Brilliant.
Over on YouTube. Same with Aidan. Same with Aidan Robertson, who I said earlier. But they go to movies. So he said, actually they both had a similar question. I mean, Aidan said the go-to movies as a child, which we already talked about. But Joe said, the first film you remember watching as a child. And I suppose I'll go first. Not really a film you'd show a child, but my mom was just like, whatever, he'll be fine. No, it was Blair Witch Project.
Oh, wow, okay. That's surprising.
I would watch horror movies all the time with my mom.
That's my dad and I, yeah.
When I was like 3, like literally, it's the first movie I remember, so I was probably like 2 or 3 years old. Like, 2002, kind of early 2003, so... I remember just laying down on the couch next to my mom, just watching it, and she would always like close my eyes like towards the end. And the same thing happened with The Ring. She would cover my eyes during The Ring, during the.
And you sort of peek out through the slits of the.
Oh no, I wouldn't even peek out because, for example, like when it was The Ring, it was during the videotape section. So I didn't want to see the videotape section just because I was too scared. And to this day, I haven't seen the actual videotape section. Because I'm like, I'm not looking at it because I've never looked at it as a child. But yeah, no, the first movie I remember watching would be Blair Witch Project. And I thought it was real at the time, as a lot of people did, because it was advertised as, like actual found footage and, all that stuff, just like Paranormal Activity was later on. And I just remember being scared shitless, but also loving it. I still love it. I rewatched it like a few months ago. It's great. I still love it.
I was very fortunate. Carry on.
Yeah, no. So I'm just gonna say, like, showing that to a 3-year-old child it's gonna scare them mentally, and that's why I am the way I am now. Okay, and what's yours?
Well, I was just going to add to that to just say I'm very fortunate to have dad like mine who's kind of subjected me to horror films. Like, mum was in the house, she was working late at night, or she was off with her friends. I was like, Dad, just put it on. He didn't really invite me. I just walk into the room and it's like, what's this? And he just, it's this. And,
yeah.
Oh, can I sit with you? Yeah, go on then. And then he would just sort of speak like a bevy to me, like, we'll just sit here. And then we'd be in total silence. But then I remember just, I don't know, I think at first, as a kid, you're normally scared of things, right? So, but and it goes without saying. But I remember I had sat through, 1408 or The Ring or something like that, or Saw, and
Yeah.
I remember just there were moments like, oh, okay, jump scare, okay, kind of scared me as you do. I was quite young, but I remember my dad kind of laughed at those moments. And I was just like, what's so funny about it? And then it was sort of kind of pause and explain like why it made it laugh, because it kind of took me out of it. But
Yeah.
then as I gradually understood, I was like, why am I? Yeah, actually, you know what? Horror films are comedy films.
Oh,
It
honestly,
sounds simplistic, but it's so silly what they come up with nowadays. And
we
just
no, we I had the same thing. So with the aunt I talked about it earlier, she had her like best
mm,
friend who was like her age. So I would always want to hang out with them. And then they'd be like, obviously, I'll be like 10 and she was like 13 or something. She's like, no, I don't want to hang out with you because she's a teenager, obviously. She doesn't want a kid running around. But from
mm.
time to time, I would watch movies with her and her friend. And we watched The Grudge 2 because I have it on DVD.
Oh yeah.
And it was like the American version, like the newer one. And it was a
Mm.
scene of The Grudge, like a woman thing, crawling on like a bed towards them. And the three of us are on the
Oh
bed.
yeah.
And like it's making
Yeah, I
the
remember it.
classic grudge noise, that I can't do it now. Yeah, I used to be able to do it when
Yeah.
I was younger. And then my auntie's friend was like, it sounds like she's burping. And then we all just started pacing ourselves. And from that time, I've watched Grudge. I'm like, I'm not scared. Your one's just burping. And that's when I started doing that. The same thing with my like when I was watching movies. I was like, well, it's not really that scary, though, is it? It's literally just
No,
real
look,
people.
she just look. One, she doesn't get enough skin. Two, she's a gymnast, which is very flexible. And three, she's just got, she just needs a burp. Just
She's just burping all the time. And that's the thing with like horror movies, especially like when you see, like behind the scenes and stuff. I watched behind the scenes of The Ring, I think, and I was like,
Mhm.
when you think about it, like you're watching a horror, it's like it can be so scary and stuff. When you think about it, they're surrounded by people with cameras and mics and lights and all that stuff, and it's like when you really think about
Imagine
it,
them.
there's like 50 people in that room. It's not scary.
Yeah. No.
And it just makes it funny.
Because
Just
I
like you
imagine it's
said.
quite hilarious to watch it on screen. Like you're the director, you're
Yeah.
like on the sound team, and you're carrying like your booth thing, your microphone, and if you see this girl like climbing on all fours, like you autistic fuck, what are you doing? Oh wait, we're on a film. Sorry, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't say that. But it literally is that. It's just
It is,
I think I've
honestly.
got desensitized to it, and now I can go through, especially with horror films nowadays, which are so shit. Like you can just
Oh, not
tell
even.
beat by beat what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no sort of mystery to things anymore. You can tell like, oh, here comes the jump scare. Whoa! Ooh.
The only two good
And
horror
I still
films
haven't made you
recently.
get that scared about them. Hmm?
The only two recently good horror films I've watched were Witch and then The Witch and then Hereditary. Because I would really
Hereditary, yeah, that was quite good.
'Cause I
I
wouldn't
liked that
consider
it went
Midsommar
like
as a
you can
horror.
still guess for things,
Yeah, you
but
can still
there were certain
see
things
it.
that were a bit unpredictable, which I liked.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen The Witch? By the
No,
way,
bits and pieces, but
Okay, yeah.
Hereditary, I have.
Yeah, you should watch the Witch fully. It's so good. Just that when it comes to horror, there's just something they do different. Those Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, it's just something different about them compared to like all
I
these
like
other
the
films.
theatricality of it. I
That's
like
the thing.
when you bring back like subtle nuances that
Because they
aren't
actually
really
feel
too
like,
formal.
yeah, like that they make them actually feel like films, Like,
Don't go for the forward. Don't go for the obvious choice. Do something that turns the film upside on itself and then keeps you guessing.
yeah, exactly.
Spoilers ahead for anyone who hasn't seen Hereditary. But there is a scene when the main character goes up to the treehouse. Yes,
Yeah.
and he sees loads of people who worship the demon, right?
Yeah.
And I think that moment I knew was coming, but I remember just like in shock and awe of what was going on and how things were just sort of displayed in such a grotesque manner
Yeah.
that just seemed almost obtuse in a way. Like, so I think moments when you do it subtly, theatricality adds to it, but you kind of need to leave some mystery out of it. You need to do something that is reversing on some of the tropes that we've come to know. You can still use them because there is
There's a reason why they're
mechanism
there.
behind
Yeah.
it. Yeah, there is a certain function to it, and that it works. It's the reason why it still existed for so long. reinvent it, or paint with a new coat of paint, do something new with it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
But
think the directors from A24 are doing with these movies like Hereditary, Witch, to an extent, Midsummer, and
A24 doing bits.
I love A24. Honestly, every film they release, I watch. I have a list of every A24 film, and I'm just watching them as they release. So I've seen every single one. I just love them.
I should really get onto that, actually.
Yeah, honestly. All right, and then what's your the first film you remember?
Oh yeah,
watching?
yeah. I've gone so straight off there,
We
but
just
my
went into
answer, I'll
horror
keep it
movies.
short, is I've got loads, but I'm just going to stick to one I really love. Spirits to Stallion, the Cimarron, was 2002, and I loved it so much. Not only for like the 2D animation,
Yeah.
it's just about horse and Matt Damon, voicing over the character, but you had like Hans Zimmer and Bryan Adams. You have Run Free, Homeland, Brother and the Sun, Here I Am, Sam the Bugle, and it's such a class film. I love it a bit. It's just a horse protecting his herd. He gets captured, and then he has to sort of fight his way out of it through. I wouldn't even say like it was American fort at the time of the Union, and I just love the vastness of the Wild West and just that untamed schism of things. And I don't know, it hit me differently at such a young age. I was like, it stuck with me, and I still listen to it when I go running sometimes. And just the soundtrack alone. If you don't watch the film, listen to the soundtrack.
It's
some of the best pieces
the
of
soundtrack
work,
is
hands down.
is beautiful.
Like goosebumps. It makes you just you get goosebumps. You want to run. You want to do something. You get like motivated to do something.
Last Twitter question is from Ryan. So, is there a game or series that you are incredibly nostalgic for, despite never actually once playing it? And we talked about this quickly before, but a few days ago. Actually, it's probably been nearly 2 weeks at this point. I've completely forgot what I said. That's the thing. And I can't, for the love of God, remember what it was. And I actually still can't. But is there any that you feel like nostalgic for, but you've never actually played?
We're discussing nostalgia of games that have come before, as I understand the premise, is to me, although a lot of these games like Last of Us, Halo, I come at from a much later time than everyone else. So there is that sense of like, reminiscing. I wish I could have had those experiences with those people who've been waiting or coming out for those releases. As I had not had those games at the time, but I think for a series of franchise I've not played yet, that maybe it could be nostalgic over, or maybe at least the time setting. I remember my mates playing it.
Yeah.
Two. One is Gears of War, and I know that's been off and on, shit and good, and it has its ups and downs, so it's not perfect. But that's one. I remember just friends of mine playing it, and I just went through the story with them, and just like the grotesque nature of it, and how sick it looked, and like the mechanics, and just the combat, and it was just so fun and bulky, and loved it. And I think that was one, and the second one was Rayman. I think I remember playing it on the original Xbox.
Yeah,
I'm playing it on the very first, but I didn't own the Xbox myself, so I technically still, I guess it kind of counts because I never really fully finished the game. So that series before they got into like, they're still nice, but not as good as the original series of like the rabbits and stuff entering inside like the realm of things and adding to the lore. But those two for me really nostalgic over them.
As you were saying that, I did think of a series I've actually never played, but I do feel in a way nostalgic because it's always been there. Like I've always remembered existing, and it would be Jak and Daxter. I've never played Jak and Daxter because as a child I was more into Spyro and Sly. I never even
Spyro.
I've never even really played Ratchet and Clank that much. Like I've played some of the Ratchet and Clank games.
I played Size Matters, which was on the PSP.
Yeah, I've played a bit of I've played bits of them. I've played bits of.
I loved it. Yeah.
Size Matters. I've played Quest for Booty. I've played what's it called? The Time one. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I've played the Ratchet games, here and there because my friends had them. But Jak and Daxter is a game I literally know nothing about. Like I've seen some gameplay on videos. They'd have them in the background or something. I know there's like a different version of Jack. He's like a grey or something,
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but
Didn't really like that
that's
bit.
honestly all I really know. And but the thing is, like I said, it's always been there. I remember seeing it in the shop. Some of my friends had it. Then when I got the internet and finally had access, to IGN and YouTube and stuff, it was always around. People always talked about it. It was always there in my life, but I've never actually played it. So I feel like if there were to be a new Jack and Daxter now, I would like that nostalgia would come back. It's like, oh yeah, it's like that was always there. Like it was always part of my life. It would be. I would feel almost the same as when the Spyro Reignited trilogy came out or
Oh yeah.
Crash
That
remastered.
brought back memory.
It was like, oh, like that thing's like I would buy them now and I'd play them because it's like it just brings me back to being a child and just seeing it around. But like, I've
That
never
joy.
played them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. All right, that's it for the Twitter questions. And next time I'll probably get more Twitter questions for the next person who's gonna be on. But I might use some of these as just overall questions. But now to
Cool.
the actual final question.
Hmm?
If there is any franchise from your childhood that you could bring back, either restart the series or just continue it, what would it be? Either game, show, or film, whatever. And then there's two for me.
Oh.
Obviously, Dragon Age is the one, like, it's the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
one.
Dragon Age, of course.
Because
Yeah.
if Dragon Age 4 is going to continue, it could be a thing, hopefully, maybe,
Well, hopefully it builds upon its predecessor.
Yeah.
It just. Oh, the more I look back to Inquisition, it had a. There was a lot of want with it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But I will still stand by and say the story is second to none.
Hmm.
I love that story so
Oh,
much.
the
It's not
story
as
is great.
intimate as two characters,
Hmm.
like Joel and Ellie, or you have
Yeah.
Trace and Kratos, but you do have, even if you are the main protagonist and it's centered around you and the typical kind of RPG element about that, but it's the interactions. What makes a game is the interactions you have with the characters you've come in contact with, your companions, people you've exchanged with through travel, trade or helped or pursued, or those certain moments. One moment you could be, best of mates. The other time you could be mortal enemies. You can have someone hanged. You can have someone executed. You could go off and you can establish a decision between Magus and Templars. So you can decide which faction to choose, and that reciprocation and the result of that action. So if full builds upon what came before and makes it so much better, I'm all in. But yeah, I kind of want a reimagined remake of Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah,
That's how
that's
much
what
it
I
means.
say. I would love like it to come back, but the thing is, I don't know who's work on it. If we were to just get like a remake, then I suppose Bluepoint would be great. They made the Uncharted stuff. They did Shadow of the Colossus. They worked
Oh
on.
yeah,
They're
and
working
Colossus.
still on Demon Souls right now. I feel like they would be great for Dragon Age Origins. But I don't know if that would ever happen. And then I can't think of any other studio really that could do it. I mean, there probably are some, but no, maybe not from
Santa
EA.
Monica, but that just would be.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like from EA themselves, there's no one there. They're not. And if BioWare, I don't know. BioWare is like kind of. They've been
In a
quite
bin.
they've been quite iffy.
They've gone. Yeah.
There's just
Well,
I don't know. That's what I'm
I
kind of
would say
worried
they're a
about.
lot like Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott makes
Yeah.
some decent films, he also makes some shit ones. So it's 50-50 most
Yeah.
of the time.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm hoping for the best, but and there's a second franchise. Now this is actually I suppose I think there's been a game. I feel like I remember playing a game from it, but it's a book series that was also a movie, and we mentioned it earlier, and it's the Spiderwick Chronicles.
Yes. Haha.
And I don't know what I would want
I
from
knew
this.
twins.
Would I want a game from it? Would I want a continuation? I know there's some type of sequels, like they're in the same world, but they were like different characters and stuff. And obviously, if I remember correctly, the full film is based on the 5 books. I think, yeah.
It was so condensed down. I
That's
still
the thing. It
enjoyed
was
it.
condensed.
It was
Oh,
a bit-
I enjoyed it as a child. Yeah. And I remember actually as a child doing the same stuff they were doing. I had like salt next to my windows, like tiny bits and stuff. Like I'm not letting any goblins and stuff into my house.
More goblins. Fuck you. Dodgy
Oh
cunt.
man, what a scene! If you haven't seen or read the
Masso
books,
paste in your face.
you're missing out. But that whole I was so tempted. There's like a guide to all the like monsters and stuff from that world on Amazon. I think it's like 30 quid. It's like a hardbook cover, and I love these type of books. They're like they look really like fantasy ones. It's a compendium, but the thing is the way it's written, it's not like typed out or anything. It looks like it's the actual book, like he had in the books where he draws the characters, he draws the different fairies, the goblins, and writes facts about them and stuff. It's like that type of compendium. Like it feels like an actual book. And there's so much to this world. I would just love anything to happen to it, like in it, like some movies, like not just in the same universe. They don't have to be prequels. They don't have to be sequels. Just have something in the Spiderwick like Chronicles like world. I would love it. Anything, game, movie, series, TV show would be amazing. Have you watched Lock and Key?
Lock and Key.
Lock and Key. It's a TV show based on it's a Netflix TV show based on a comic book series, and it's actually really well made. I feel like something like that, like an 8-episode like Witcher type Netflix.
Welcome to Lovecraft. Okay.
Yeah, like a Netflix show based on Spiderwick. Even you could even put the books, instead of making it that one movie that we had, remake it into an 8-part series, on Netflix, like an hour each. That would be. Oh man, I just want Spiderwick Chronicles. Yeah, that's mine. Is there any other ones for you that are not Dragon Age?
Besides Dragon Age, I feel like this is beating a dead horse that just should have died years ago, but it just ceases to die. And I wouldn't want to. And I think you know where I'm going with this. I don't want to remake them entirely because there are some good content with it. But Assassin's Creed at some point, maybe, is the obvious choice. Just start from Revelations and move onwards. Just
nothing else exists. Like anything past thing.
I mean, say what you will about modern day. It has ups and downs. Some people might hate it, which but there are certain elements I still appreciate if they did it right. And I've yet to see that done right in full justice, aside from Brotherhood, maybe. But
would you want them to still be like these open world games, or?
No, I think, and I'm going to hate for this, but I would want it to be more like an Uncharted-esque, not like
no. That's literally
but you get what I'm saying.
I was just about to say something.
What I mean with this.
Uncharted-esque.
I like it being the camera a bit closer.
Yeah,
drop the RPG element a bit. Make it a singular story.
There is no reason for me to talk. You're saying everything I was going to say. Just make it like a God of War kind of Uncharted thing with your close up to the character. It's linear.
And I don't understand why. It's a single player game. Stop making it seem like it's an RPG, multiplayer-esque kind of game.
Yeah.
There
even is no point. Like I understand just parkour in it, so that's why there's an open world.
Just give me a good story, and not just a story, but build upon the lore. And its characters.
You can get rid of the open world. You can still have parkour, like you have like in Uncharted, and stuff, or even The Last of Us. They're still jumping around and stuff. You could still
There's
do
so
that.
Much potential for
integrate it into the level design.
Throw that away, and
just make it a linear game that's story based. It's all I want. That's the only time I would buy an Assassin's Creed game again. But that's never gonna happen, so I'm never gonna buy one again. And you can clip this out, and if I ever buy one, you can send me this, and I'll be disappointed myself.
You know that scene with, like, transitioning, spoilers for The Last of Us 2, if you've not played it yet, but there's 2 characters, you switch between two protagonists, right? I wouldn't be so opposed. I'm not saying you play for a long duration of time in a modern day world, but I want that to be grounded enough where you feel like, okay, well, it's not just this historical drama piece. You're losing friends, you've got companions, you've got this entire story built upon this one character who's done some amazing act of goodness. You always play some sort of grey or anti-hero, or you play some high up character as you always do, which is fine for Assassin's Creed game. As long as you tell it right. Because you've got Nathan Drake, you've got Kratos, you've got Joel, you've got so many other characters. But you can switch into modern day second half of the game, or at least at some point during the game where you can actually feel like the modern day is grounded. Like, okay, you've been woken up like a Matrix sort of thing. Neo's been brought out of the machine. He's been brought out of the Matrix, and now he's kind of having to deal with, the real world. And so you have to delve into like spy shit, and you can go into like espionage. You can go into like secret raids, and you can go into not like a typical raid, but like you're going in for information. You're hacking things. You're do it right. Just not like a Watch Dogs thing.
Yeah.
Just give me a good story, especially for modern day. Like, connect the stories in such a good way, please. Anyways, that's
the podcast just had to include Assassin's Creed.
we had to. We have to. We're in an Assassin's Creed community, whether they like to agree with that or not. It is. It was. It always will be. Stop pretending it's not.
And I have a feeling my next video is going to be ranking the Assassin's Creed games just to piss people off. Honestly, I'm going to piss some people off for sure.
Oh, you guys think it's going to be AC Odyssey? Well, it's not. It's AC Syndicate.
I haven't played Odyssey, so I'm going to just say it. Like, it's going to be at the bottom, but obviously it's like I haven't played it. So, but yeah.
Don't tell me it's Rogue. Please don't tell me it's Rogue. Like,
wait, what? The best one? Or what?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the Rogue is the second game that I've only actually just played a tiny bit of.
Okay.
I've done like the intro, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm bored."
Could you do the spoilers? At least your favorite one?
Or it's Assassin's Creed 2, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah. But my second favorite. No, is it an Ezio game or is it not?
Is it Liberation?
Find out next Thursday.
Or is it the Nomad app on your mobile?
Oh,
that's my favorite AC game.
It's actually Assassin's Creed Russia.
Okay.
The one game out of the 3 Chronicles games that I haven't played. Because I finished China, I played a good bit of India, and then I was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, I'm bored. And that's the thing, they fucked up 3 good settings. And I know I'm going to lead off from Assassin's Creed, but we had China, India, and Russia, all good settings, and they just fucking wasted.
We're going to encapsulate it into.
Russia would be so good. I always think about it. Have an Assassin's Creed game set in like Central or Eastern Europe. Have it like Poland or Germany or Russia. Like, there's so much you could do with like those cities. Like, But anyway, they'll find out on Thursday because because of Ghost of Tsushima, I won't have time to actually make a video, so I'm just gonna make one on Assassin's Creed.
Oh yeah, mate, I've been playing that.
Yeah, okay. From now on, before we end, we're just gonna have a quick tangent on Ghost of Tsushima. We're gonna talk a bit about it. So if you do not want to hear anything about it, we probably won't go into spoilers. We'll just talk about the world. You can end here, and if you do want to listen a tiny bit, it's probably just about the first area. So even then, it's
just more about first impressions, really.
Exactly. Then you can listen on. So, all right, what are your first impressions then? I suppose.
Had a really strong opening, but it wasn't unlike something I had like Sekiro. It's nothing really new. It's not like wowing me. It's not like jaw dropping. But the visuals, I will say, like okay. The only minus I have for the visuals is some textures fall flat.
Oh my god! At the beginning.
But at the beginning,
but at the beginning, when you're getting back onto the island, and there's a section when Jin and the thing Yuma are like talking on the island, and you can see the sand and then the water, and the textures are so bad. I'm like, oh god!
It looks like a PS2 thing.
That texture itself, and the thing is, I played before I had the day one patch because the day one patch wouldn't install for some reason. So maybe it got patched, I don't know. But that looked so bad. But when you get into the world, like we said there, like The Last of Us 2 is the best looking game there is.
Yeah, best looking game I've ever played.
But I think this is the most beautiful aesthetically.
It's aesthetically pleasing. It really falls between the line of cartoon and realism. So it really finds that fine line. Because you can look at the grass, and it's like, okay, well, I can believe it.
Yeah.
because I have seen grass like that before, but it also looks kind of plasticky. It kind of
Yeah.
has this softness about it,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the colors, a lot of the shading, a lot of the, especially in photo mode, which I'm doing non-stop. You
Oh
can see
man.
loads of it in
Yeah.
discussion
My
chats where
my
I'm just
Twitter. Oh
taking.
yeah. My Twitter is full of it. I'm gonna have to go into actual Discord and look at people's photos. But
It's
like
just,
even today, I
oh,
was.
so me,
Yeah,
answer
go
me
on, sorry.
this at least
Mm-hmm.
is what are some of your take backs? So we'll start with negatives and list the positives so far. So
I
take back aside from textures like sand and certain rock
which I
features.
they're gonna get fixed soon enough, I assume, if they haven't
Yeah.
already. I don't know. I don't really have any negatives. I suppose the combat was a bit frustrating at the beginning, but
Hmm.
that's what it's meant to be. You're meant to get used to it. You're meant to change your stances depending on who you're fighting. I haven't really had any glitches or anything. As we were talking, I actually saw Ashton had a glitch where he went through the world,
Oh no.
but he jumped back up straight away. So I mean, fair enough.
Okay.
Um, Main story wise, I've literally. How far are you in the main story? Have
It doesn't really
Let's
matter,
play.
but
Uh,
I'm quite
for
far
me,
ahead.
I'm where you actually get your tools done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
You free the
yeah.
thing. Yeah, I'm literally just there because all I've been doing is side stuff, and
Hmm.
honestly, I love the side stuff. Like
The side stuff is
the
so
main story,
inviting.
like so far, like it's cool. Whatever, you know, it it might get better on. Like I don't really care for it, but it's not also that I don't hate it. It's pretty cool. But the side stuff are so cool with the sensei and he's student. That whole like those whole things, I love that. But then
Hmm.
also last night I was playing and I was just riding just down the road and there's someone was talking about some ghosts in a forest and
Oh yeah, yeah.
like some spirits and I was like, all right. And then there's this guy, he's like on the corner of the road and he's just like talking. It's like, yeah, people go into the forest and they don't come back. And I'm like, all right. And then I go in and I see, it's so eerie. It's just all dark and there's like all these bodies hanging. And then you
Hmm.
find like the bandit camp and you kill them and everything is fine. But then on my way out, there was like a house there and you actually can go inside the house and you can see that someone was killed. And then you can see, if you find notes written by the guy who was killed saying how he hears the whispers and the cries of these samurai ghosts that have died and they're like calling for him every day.
Hmm.
So I feel like whether you start the mission from the guy on the side of the road or if you just stumble across this house, you'll end up doing the same thing. And I think that's great. Like,
Oh yeah, it's
because
really
you could have just been
immersive. Yeah.
exploring by yourself and just finding this house and then like, oh, there's stuff happening around here, and then you follow all the footprints and stuff and you find the bandits anyway. But then you could literally do it a completely different way. So that was the one that that stuck out to me when it comes to the side quests. And the mythical quests are really cool. Like the first mythical like attack you get was really cool when you have to duel the guy on top of the mountain with the lightnings coming down. That
Oh
that
yeah.
that, that was amazing. And then yeah,
Beautiful, man.
the visuals like when I was playing it today, and I don't know, I was just kind of riding around, and I went on top of some like mountain, and um it just had a red and yellow tree like just next to each other, and the skies were blue. And I took a photo. It's on my Twitter. I'm gonna show it up on the screen now of the podcast. And it just I randomly stumbled across it. It was so beautiful. Like that's the thing, it just makes you want to explore, and it's
Oh, it's very
huge.
inviting.
Yeah,
Yes.
like the whole first area is huge. I've seen maybe like one third, maybe half of it,
Hmm.
but
It's
like
so daunting, the size of the map,
it's daunting,
and you
but
would
at the same
think,
time it's not. Like you know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how they did it, but
Because everything
it's
feels
great.
very immersive to the sense that wherever you go, okay, so I'll just say briefly is that it's an overarching narrative of the Mongols. At the foundation of it, every interaction you have will in some way relate to the Mongol invasion or oppression in some way, and I think that's really helped ground. It helps ground not just the main story but the side stories as well, the side quests.
Yeah.
around, it would just feel like you're going around doing fetching quests. Like everything you've done is in service to something else. It feels very purposeful in that, although maybe some things don't feel as deep. I've not felt like it's bad, but I can tell if I look past it and I can critique it, and I actually started to judge it harsher. I can look past the exterior and just say, actually, you know what, the face textures might need some work maybe, or some of the movements can be janky at times, or some of the side quests, the NPCs is like bowing. Love that little anecdote. I love just like the subtle moments in between.
I walk up to people and I just bow just to do it, because I feel every time I see like a shrine kind of thing, I even inside a house, there was this like abandoned area, and you go inside, it's like the forge area, if you know, there's a forged place.
Yeah.
And I go in there like in the main building, and there's a samurai armor. And I just went up to it and I just bowed, because I feel like that's what he would have done.
Oh, I've done the same.
Just like you just have to.
The same
like,
thing to the samurai armor.
It literally, it just does it automatically to you. Like you literally start behaving like a samurai would. Like you do what Jin would be doing.
One of the best qualities in the world. It fully immerses yourself.
Oh, honestly, like you honestly feel like a samurai. That's the thing. It's great.
It's a beautiful the way
experience,
Jin interacts and how the NPCs respond. Like, it's not the deepest thing in the world, right?
And so
it's so much better than many the washed away, kind of half done, half baked RPGs you see nowadays, or at least trying to resemble that. This one feels like, okay, first off, the map is huge, so it feels daunting. But once you've gone into it, it just feels so relaxing. It's like, it's fine. There is a lot of things to do. There is a lot to see. There's a lot of interactions you have to do. There's a lot of fetching. There's a lot of, do this, do that. And it might seem repetitive, which it very well may be, yes.
Yeah.
But it feels as though, and here's the difference I wanted to get at, is back to the archetype of the Mongol invasion, is that it feels in service to something, rather than, if I'd gone to... I'll just use the typical answer. Just let's say Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
The best, worst example of what not to do. So you have all these quests, and they throw so many things on the map for you to discover. But it's just that you discover it, and that's it. But what this game does is very similar to The Witcher 3. Is that when you go in and you meet an NPC, it's not as flushed out as The Witcher 3, I would say.
Yeah.
But it has that same element of, you meet an NPC, they have their own stories. You might have a bandit who's not really a bandit. He's just trying to hide shrine items and silver from the Mongols, and protecting his faith and such. And then you find out later on, like, oh, that bandit was reprimanded from some nearby village, and you have to help out this village and say, no, they're good guys. They might be bandits, but they've seen their ways. They're actually going off to defend you now. They've learnt their ways, and they're actually acting in service towards you. So it feels like it's all building towards the narrative in some way, in little moments, rather than, Odyssey, you're like, I'm going to go shag your wife and then leave you. Like, and the same thing happened in Witcher, where not the shagging, I mean, of course there is, but you would have Geralt, and Geralt go and help out a friend and stuff. And that plays more to the main protagonist,
Yeah.
You're not just going on the monster quest, you're not slaying a monster, but you're also dealing with humans, you're dealing with politics, friendships and companions, and it all deals with this greater narrative of who Geralt is. And this one all deals with who Jin is as a samurai. Is he acting like a samurai is with his stealth? Is he going against the idea of honor and such? And so there's a lot to be had within this game, and it fully immerses you. And I love it. I can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, honestly, I think we're having a VC tonight. I already know I'm going to be playing it in the background. Like, even just...
That's what I did last night. I literally chatted... Like, everyone joined VC last night, especially the Skype call thing.
Yeah.
And when Discord just died on us.
Yeah.
And I was kind of more silent than I normally am, because I was just watching my screen, just doing photo mode. Just like, yeah. Fine.
Oh, yeah, that's all I'm going to be doing tonight.
Like,
I'm not even going to, pay attention to stuff. I just want to just run around, find stuff.
Yeah.
No, but I can't wait. That's the thing. Rarely there are games these days that just capture me so much. I feel like the last time, instead of The Last of Us Part 2, this happened was Jedi Fallen Order. Like, it was the first time in years that I actually bought a game and finished it within a weekend.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the same now. It's like I just want to keep playing it, and like that just doesn't happen to me anymore. Like there'll be games.
It really
and,
doesn't.
I'll
It's
buy
very
them,
difficult
and
to get into
I'm just
things
like,
now.
I'll play at some other point. I'll finish some other time. I'll play some of this, and then I put in 300 hours into FIFA career mode. Because it's just chill. And
Yeah, no,
and
I
then
get you. I've done the same
this-
thing with Halo. Yeah.
yeah, whether I'm actually playing the story or I'm just doing side stuff, I can actually just relax and play it. It's just, I don't know. It feels good. It feels good.
Yeah. It's good to have a story where you can find yourself fully immersed.
Yeah.
It's good to. The biggest thing, and I assume you have the same, point of contentment here, is that the biggest thing that takes us away from getting to these bigger titles like The Last of Us, and although that, of course, not hard to get into because it's The Last of Us, but these single player games that are heavily situated around big stories and long stories like that, is that it's devoting the amount of time and attention to it.
Yeah.
So first off, I would say best time to do it of any time at all. Lockdown and such, quarantine and stuff, best time for it. But also, it's, I think, some of the best stories we've had in years. Not just The Last of Us 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima. These sorts of new games that have heavily story-based games. I think a lot of this is resurgence that people are starting. Like, we can trust in these games now. We can devote our time to this and invest in it enough to say that was a good experience. Last of Us 2, I spent 10 plus hours each day like a madman just getting through the story because I loved it so much. I didn't want to leave it. It was like a film binge you have on Netflix.
Yeah, honestly, I started Friday morning. I finished it was basically Sunday 2 a.m. So it was like from Saturday to Sunday. I spent like 20-something hours with my brother in the room because he sat with me through the whole thing. Or my mom came home and she's like, "Oh, why aren't the dishes washed? Why isn't this done?" I'm like, "Mom, listen, you don't understand, but we need to play this." I can't. I've waited years for this. It's a sequel to my favorite game. You can do the cleaning for once. I need to play this game.
Back to the kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I speaking of Last of Us, and my sister's actually got into it now.
Ooh, the first one? Yeah.
Both. Well, the first one.
Yeah,
her boyfriend was playing The Last of Us 2, and she's like, "You know what? I really like where this is going." And she had gone up until Joel's death, which was kind of a spoiler thing for her.
Yeah, a big spoiler.
Should I have said spoiler warning? It's been out for ages.
It's been a month. It's literally been a month today.
And she's like, "Oh, Zach, I know you," because she went to me like, "I really know you've said this several times, and I know I've been had a rebuttal against it. I don't really want to play this." But then until she saw that scene, I was like, "Oh, this is like a film, an interactive film." And she's like, "I'm going to play the first one as soon as I can."
Yeah.
And so then we were discussing it in the family chat, and I remember my mum went to me and went, "The Last of Us, is that just a zombie game?" Like, "It's not just a zombie game. How dare you? It's so much more."
Yeah.
Okay, you and your video game. But
I literally sat down with my mum once and I showed her the intro scene to The Last of Us and told her about the whole story. I was like, if only she could actually play games, I would give her the controller and it was like, enjoy this. But like
the amount of times
she wouldn't be able to actually walk around properly, So
yeah. Just the amount of times I've actually had to convince my dad, like, "Dad, just play Uncharted or play God of War, play something new." So, "Oh, well, you're recommending it to me, so I won't play it now." Like, don't be a prick about it.
Oh, okay. So
shall we start wrapping things up?
Yeah, I suppose that's all the questions. That's all. I never wrote an intro, so I'm gonna have to wing this. And I'm gonna. But I suppose if you did manage to get through all of that so far, as I'm looking, it's 2 hours 47 minutes. It's gonna probably be a bit shorter whilst I actually edit. Then thank you so much
I promise you, this will probably be like one of the longest ones.
Yeah, probably.
Who knows? It might be longer, but
Possibly.
I'm going to say thank you, Cass, for having me on.
Of
It's
course.
been such a good ride and good experience, and we talked about so many things.
And it finally happened. None of us
It
died.
finally happened. The universe allowed us to happen.
Thank you, universe. They couldn't. Too much power in one call. But yeah, of course, and you're always welcome to come back if I ever do episodes where we just talk about some specific
Absolutely
specific
you and I could
franchise.
I think we have to end the podcast, or else we would go on for like 10 hours.
We could
plus.
keep going, yeah, but I need to edit this tonight and tomorrow morning. But yeah, no, this is the best way to start.
Oh, it is the best. I don't have to do the editing.
And yeah, like I said, if I ever do any podcast, if we ever do like a nostalgia cast thing on Lord of the Rings or something, obviously I'll bring you back on. Or because from time to time, of course, I do want to just interview people, but I feel like from time to time it would be nice to have this like
recurring character,
specific kind of theme kind of thing. Like if anyone here listens to Knockback by Colin Moriarty, it's just him and his brother talking about memories, like their best friends from them being a child, or some specific game or movie or something. I feel like that would be really nice to have from time to time. So at those times I'll probably get Zach on. And so yeah, so if you have listened to all of this or watched it on YouTube, then thank you so much for watching / listening. Of course, you'll find all my links in description to my Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Same with Zach. Whatever you want in the description, I suppose your Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about it, as he doesn't have a YouTube channel. And yeah, that's about it. On Thursday, there's going to be, like I said earlier, an Assassin's Creed ranking. And I have a few people coming up on the next few episodes, and that's going to be Mario, Walshy, and Mark / aka Jesus. So yeah, that is it. That is the first episode.
Savior.
That is the first episode of Nostalgia Cast. Thank you everyone once again, and I'll see you next time.